This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. Jeff Elbert, welcome to the studio, man.
What up, man?
It is good to have you here. Good to have you at the house.
Yeah, man. You've been doing well for yourself, man. I'm proud of you, man.
What were you saying before we got started? You were saying we were going to try to get you fired from your job. Like that's like the goal for our conversation.
The goal would be I would love to continue being employed by the District of Lawton Public Schools because I love what I do there, man, and I love what's going on in my life right now. I'm living on purpose with purpose, and so, yeah, man. Let's not get fired today, bro.
Okay, we'll not get fired. Well, I mean, I do have a tendency to get into some pricklier topics here and there, but we'll see what we can do to drive around it. But for those of you listening to this podcast, I've listened for any length of time, and we get new listeners every week, so we're so thankful for you new listeners. But we had a mutual buddy on a few months ago, Chris Zerzavy. So he came on and told us the story of his son and losing his son. But we kind of started with just Lawton, growing up in Lawton because I was born. Now, were you born in Lawton?
Born and raised.
Okay,
baby.
so born and raised in Lawton, but I haven't lived there since I moved to Edmond in 2004. And so you've been there.
Wow.
It's been
that long. Because you came to UCO and just stayed, right?
Yeah, I came to UCO, met my wife, Kelsey. We got married right after she graduated. She was a year younger. And man, we got a little duplex close to campus, and we've just stayed here. We put down super deep roots here in Edmond, and so I'd get back to Lawton to see family here and there, kind of a thing. But then, man, even for my family, like family has kind of spread out, and so we've had family move to like Bixby, and family move to Texas, and family move to just kind of all over the place. And so now it's like that, it's like all the cousins moved away. Yeah. So like the grandparents passed away, and now everyone's mom and dad is kind of still there, sort of, kind of, and then, it's just been kind of a weird deal, but I mean, you've spent your entire life, I mean, are you 40, 39?
39 a couple weeks ago, actually, yeah.
So you've just been in this city your entire life, and you've kind of seen the ups and downs, and if you're from Oklahoma, you kind of know Lawton has a reputation, which we'll get into, because that's part of the work you're doing is trying to change that reputation, but let's just start with Lawton, man. Growing up in Elbert.
Sure, growing up in Elbert, that's an entirely different podcast episode right there.
Yeah,
but,
well, we got time.
And just to clarify, I did join the Army and leave. So I was in the Army almost 8 years. Praise God for that experience, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But a majority of my life in Lawton for sure, a good portion of 30-something years. And shoot, you've been in Edmond now longer than you were in Lawton, technically, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
when you
crazy.
think about that,
I knew that you were here for a while, and obviously I've kept up with you. We've had at least a conversation per year probably since then. I think in my Army years we might have just fallen away from each other a little bit, but then especially when I got back to Lawton, back to Oklahoma, we've pretty much kept up with each other. So I knew that you were here. I knew that you went to UCO. And obviously just always paying attention to what you got going on. But I didn't realize until you just said that it's been since we graduated that you've been up here, really.
Well, because those memories are so formative for people. It's kind of like, I can't remember why I went into the kitchen, but I can remember the lyrics to a song that I last heard when I was 9. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, it is kind of weird when you have all your formative experiences growing up in one particular place, one zip code, and then you move and shift entirely. And now, with a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, I'm thinking about, okay, what are their formative experiences? Because of the community that we live in, they're probably not going to get a knife pulled on them as they're walking home from school, like I did in 5th or 6th grade, right? That's probably not going to be something that's going to happen. They're maybe not going to have to deal with, some of the gang problems, some of the issues. We'll get into that as well. Sure. But every community has its issues. So in this community, so you have a lot of affluent people, a lot of people with college degrees, and so you got a lot of people that think their crap doesn't stink. And then their depravity just takes a different flavor, right?
Sure.
And so it's like rich people depravity and poor people depravity, redneck depravity, gangster depravity, like whatever. It's all depraved. Yeah. But here, I kind of always use this as an example. Abortion rates in Edmond are incredibly high because teenage girls will be very promiscuous, but their parents who, dad's got a membership down at the golf club and it was hard to get that. And he doesn't want to have to explain to the guys down at the golf club why his 16-year-old daughter's walking around with a newborn baby and all that. So they just pay $400 or $500 for the problem to go away. Yeah. Right.
I can see that.
And, alcoholism and swinging and all this kind of stuff, we just hide it behind nicely manicured lawns and new houses. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's still depravity.
Yeah. And I don't even, I don't at all mean to communicate that, problems don't exist here either. You know what I mean? So let's talk about Lawton, man. I absolutely love Lawton. It is, and I've been to different communities, a couple years at a time, just been stationed at 3 different places from Louisiana to Georgia to even Hawaii. I was blessed to be able to be stationed on Schofield Barracks, even, on Oahu, and all of these different places I've been to, you've always run into poverty. You always run into even the affluent side. You run into the drugs, the crime. You run into the churches and any walks of life that on any scale you can find. But I've never and I'm definitely 100% biased, but I've never known or seen a place like Lawton, America, man. And I know we get a negative rap, rightfully so. And so I've made it my life's mission to ensure that. And we don't want to cover up the shady 580, for those that don't know, that beautiful moniker about my hometown, which absolutely is negative 100%. We don't want to pretend like it doesn't exist, right? But the mission is to document and showcase and demonstrate in our own lives the goodness, the coolness, the greatness that is Lawton, Oklahoma. And yeah, man. So I will always speak with a chip on my shoulder, just based on coming from there. You being from there, you know exactly what it is I'm talking about. It's just a different pride from being from there, man. And so that's my life work. So yeah, I'm born and raised in Lawton, Oklahoma. I was one of the first babies to be born in Southwestern Medical Center, man. At least that's what I'm told. I don't have the statistics.
They didn't get you like a plaque or something like that on your way out?
I don't know if I was first or second or 17th, but I was one of those. Back in the 1900s. Yeah. And I'm an 86 baby. Are you 86 baby?
86.
Yeah. Shout out to the 86ers, man.
That's right.
So anyway, it's a beautiful thing to be from there. I went to John Adams Elementary school, and then at some point we were able to move in with my grandmother because our house was being foreclosed on, and we moved into Woodland Hills District, which was a little bit better, and a lot of bit better. Yeah. And I ended up going to Woodland Hills from about 2nd grade up to 6th grade, and then because we lived on the west side, went to Eisenhower Junior High, went to Eisenhower High School. Wrestled since 7th grade, and I'm giving you the abbreviated version, obviously, but eventually ended up going to the Army. So the less abbreviated version, now that I've given you kind of the preface, when I was in elementary school, we played all the sports, right? I wanted to be a professional baseball player, so I played baseball, I played soccer and football. Was never really good at the hoops, man. I try to pretend like I can, but the truth is, this white man can't jump or shoot or dribble, man. So I just didn't do that. But you were really good at wrestling.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah. Wrestlers are typically not good at ball sports. That's right. Like you don't get both. You know what I mean?
Well, then 7th grade came, and I went out for football, and everybody else hit what they call growth, and I didn't. And in 7th grade, man, I was about 79 pounds, soaking wet. And I'm still kind of a small statured guy, right? But back then, just a late bloomer, especially, and smaller than everybody. So all of my friends, all the homies that we played football with and baseball with, everybody outgrew me. Yeah. And to tell the truth, I was scared, right? And so football was like, I don't want to keep getting my head cracked by these dudes who used to be the same size as me, and now they're not, right? And I remember being in Mr. Owen's science class, first hour, 7th grade.
7th grade.
And I remember him coming up to me. It was probably October-ish, November-ish, and he said, hey, do you play sports? And I said, no, not anymore. I'm waiting on baseball to come back around. And he said, well, while you're waiting on baseball, you should think about wrestling. Now, as I'm sure you're going to get to here in a little bit, I was a huge WWF fanatic before it was WWE, huge on WCW, huge on Stone Cold Steve Austin and Goldberg and The Undertaker, and those were my guys, right? And I mean, to where I had all the collectibles.
That's what I was saying. We can't just pass over the fact that every single day, because we met in 7th grade.
Here we go.
Every single day, you were wearing a WWF or a WCW t-shirt.
Every day.
And if I remember correctly, it was a long time ago, a few concussions ago, I was keeping track of Goldberg's win streak on a whiteboard in my locker.
That's crazy.
And I'm pretty sure at different times you would come and update because, they do the Monday night Nitro and then they would do pay-per-views, but then they did a bunch of house shows. Yeah. So that's how Goldberg could go from, 30-0.
Yeah, he was undefeated for a long time.
40-0 the next week or something like that.
3 or 4 years.
And so you were the guy. Like, I wanted your wardrobe so bad because I had a Goldberg shirt and you had a week's worth of Goldberg shirts.
I'll have you know, though, Kyle, because of the people I rode the bus with, right? The people that I befriended, the people that they have been my people since forever ago. I used to get bullied so bad for wearing nothing but wrestling T-shirts that I ultimately, by the end of 7th grade, had stopped watching wrestling altogether. Stopped wearing those clothing altogether, and that's kind of what began. Not the bullying necessarily, but that's kind of what began my need to belong and my need to fit in. Because you're right. I was, to wear a Stone Cold Steve Austin 316 right shirt in 6th grade at Woodland Hills Elementary School. It was cool, man. It was cool. But then when you're in 7th grade at Eisenhower Junior High and you're intermingled back with, different demographics of people and kids. And kids, man, especially 7th and 8th grade, all the way up through high school, the amount of roasting that occurs, man, it definitely made me who I am today.
That's
man.
right.
But it definitely went directly against my need for like social solidarity. You know what I mean? Which is a word I learned in college in my 30s, by the way. But this need to be accepted by my peers really drove my existence all the way up until I found Jesus. You know what I mean? When I realized that Jesus had a separate identity altogether. Well, or for me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, to Rick Owens, right? Shout out Coach Owens. He got me on the mat. I hated it.
Yeah.
I absolutely did not want to do that. I thought it was weird. We were touching other dudes, and then I got a glimpse of what we would have to wear, and it was just, to me it would make me gay if I did that. You know what I mean? And really that was also driven by the roasting as well. Like, you're gonna wrestle, bro. You know what I mean?
In a purple singlet, nonetheless.
Yeah, purple and gold.
Middle school Vikings, it's purple and gold. You were going to stick out.
But you know what? Something happened, man. A switch got turned on the first time I actually wrestled in a singlet with headgear on in an actual competition, 75-pound weight class. And I remember I had to cut weight to make 75 from like 77. It wasn't a huge weight cut. But, to a little kid, 7th grader, to lose 2 pounds.
That's a lot.
It was crazy. And I don't have any weight to lose. So what are we doing here? To get a good haircut, and I made weight, right? But so anyways, we went to Vernon, Texas. My first ever duel experience, my first ever tournament experience, and I absolutely fell in love with the sport. And to be able to start, really because I was the only one that size, and it just developed a love for the sport, and I just stuck with it throughout the years. But it was, and wrestling, God was able to use wrestling even when I didn't know who God really was. Of course, I was raised in church, but I didn't know him, or how much he loved me, the way he made me. Little did I know even then he was utilizing that to mold me, right? And so, I credit Coach Owens and Coach Wattenbarger and Coach Steyer especially. These guys, to be my coaches, and to stick with me. Throughout those formidable years, at least to help me learn what wrestling was all about. I attribute that to a lot of my success now, and obviously my love for the sport is still there, if not even more now, being able to coach it.
Now, did you get the Eye of the Tiger speech from Coach Owens?
Probably.
Okay.
We definitely played it every day.
Yeah, so that was like a thing. So, because in 7th grade, so I did football as well, and I remember this. So, I haven't seen him in forever, but I just love this guy, Juwan Jackson.
Jawan J. Uno.
Yeah, love that kid. And so, he's a grown man. What am I talking about, kid?
He's always been a grown man.
In 7th grade, we're doing Oklahoma drills, right? And I met him in the hole, and just something went wrong with my back, right? And so basically, I was in pretty excruciating back pain from like 7th grade to right before 9th grade football started. And I was getting ready to go back out so I could play baseball and all that, but like I just was constantly like having this back pain. And you're a little kid, you shouldn't be dealing with like back pain. And so I'm trying to go out for football in 9th grade, and my mom just kind of goes, "Are you out of your mind?" Mm-hmm. I'm like, and I'm completely aloof because I'm an idiot. And I'm just like, "Well, what are you talking about?" She's like, you're just now starting to feel good on your back, right? And you want to go back out there and play football. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm not playing football anymore. But in 9th grade, I picked up wrestling as well. So, because I only wrestled like 9th and 10th grade. Like,
I remember.
I wrestled people in jiu-jitsu, and they're just like, oh my gosh, where'd you go? Where'd you go to school to wrestle? I'm like, Eisenhower High School, 10th grade. I mean, so it's not a high-level wrestler, especially compared to some of the people that I train with. But like, it's not like any other sport you're going to find K through 12, because baseball is hard. There's nothing harder in sports than hitting a spherical ball with a round bat squarely. It's just.
And the older you get, it comes faster across the plate.
Yeah, it's like impossible to do.
Definitely.
But in wrestling,
hard sport.
like I hated baseball practice because it was boring. But you can't be boring at wrestling practice because you're getting pounded into the pavement. Like, and I remember in 9th grade, we were on the team together, and it was like, be the hammer, not the nail. That was the whole thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Our 9th grade year. And again, in 9th grade, I wasn't a high-level wrestler. I never started. I weighed in with the varsity team once in 9th grade because they wanted to like pull a little switcheroo and made like they wanted the other school, I don't know if it was Mac or somebody, to think they were having a smaller guy go at a higher weight. Mm-hmm. So I wore my warm-ups, and they put like, stacks of like rolls of quarters in my pockets or whatever to make me seem like I was heavier or whatever. But like, yeah, I was never out there with you. I was never out there with.
We would never do that these days.
No, that would never happen. I was never out there with Tyler Hill, maybe the best all-around athlete I've ever been around in my entire life. With Daniel Shannon, like I wasn't like with any of those guys that were actually solid. But it was cool getting to kind of watch you guys from afar.
Yeah.
And like
but we had a really good 9th grade team too.
Yeah. And just the things that you were able to do to bigger people at a smaller weight.
Yeah.
Like it made no sense to me because again, I'm a chimp. I'm an idiot. I'm just like, well, no, the bigger person's just going to win. Why? Because they're bigger. And if you wrestle now, like if you do jujitsu, it's just like, man, you just don't realize how much that doesn't come into play when you're, within 100 pounds of somebody.
Yeah. Well, I learned from Coach Watt in 12th grade. He became our wrestling coach in 12th grade when Styron had to step away. He told me, he said, take half their body away. Like, go at an angle to where you split their weight in half. Yep. And that was the smartest thing to this day has probably ever come out of his mouth. I'm going to make sure I send him this episode so he can hear me say that about him too. But no, and I use that now. I was like, hey, take half the body away, and now you're only wrestling, 775 instead of 150, and so yeah, that's that. I don't know why I thought about that, but yeah, I mean, to be able to call myself a wrestler is I feel like an accomplishment, man. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I was successful at basic training, I feel like, because of wrestling practice. Like, basic training to me was a lot easier than a Coach Styron wrestling practice.
Oh yeah, where they got the heaters on and you got your
it's 90 degrees in there, and you got I heard that some people may have wore trash bags to cut weight, stuff like that. It's nothing I would have ever done.
No, definitely not.
Stuff like that, and then you're supposed to still, oh, by the way, you got to go to school. By the way, you might have to miss a couple meals. By the way, this and that. And but it definitely, wrestling is one of the things, obviously, besides Jesus Christ, that really saved my life. And it was the only reason I was going to school, man. I mean, I've always been a pretty intelligent guy. And this kind of brings us full circle back to 7th grade. We were kind of mentioning this earlier at lunch today. When I left 6th grade and came to Eisenhower Junior High for 7th grade, all of my classes were honors classes.
Yeah.
I mean, honors math, especially honors English, whatever the honors was available. I think I had 3 or 4 different class periods that were considered honors, right? And I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, well, I'm a smart guy, that it is what it is. Well, then I remember being in 7th grade honors math. I couldn't tell you what the teacher's name is. Maybe you guys remember, but in this class was Macy Jensen and Brady Wyatt and just to name a couple of your kids. And I had known Macy my whole life, but I don't know if you remember Macy.
Of course, yeah.
But it's my first time ever meeting Brady Wyatt.
Yeah, Brady and I went to elementary. We went to Crosby Park together, really? So we know each other since first grade.
This is how I met these guys, and Brady ended up being on our wrestling teams and different things too. And he was one of the reasons I wrestled also, because he was kind of he was reinforcing what Coach Owens was trying to recruit me to do and some other things. So anyways, I mean, and these guys, I still have, especially with Brady and them, I still have pretty good, I would think good friendships with these people to this day. But I remember being in 7th grade math class and looking around and not seeing any of the homies, man. I remember thinking none of my friends are in this class, and it goes back to your social solidarity and your need to belong. I didn't really feel like I belonged in these classes, and it was just, now I know it was the it was just deceit from Satan, and my own just state of depression probably that sought to be more. I would have rather have been in a general education class with my friends than in an honors class. So I remember at the end of 7th grade going to my mom and being like, hey, I don't want to be in honors anymore. And my mom like being vehemently against it, bro. Yeah. And my dad was kind of like, you know what I'm saying? But my mom was like, no, you need to be in these classes, and eventually you'll be in AP, and eventually that'll help for college. And you're
in 7th grade.
In 7th grade, I'm even through high school, I was like, I don't even know if I want to do college, man. Like, Daddy, you work at Goodyear, and he seems to be doing all right, And so, anyways, they acquiesced, so to speak, to what I wanted. And if I had to give any advice to any parents, don't do that. Your kids are your kids, and you make that decision for them in 7th grade. That there's a lot of different things that a kid can think he wants or she wants, and you as their parent, you have every right to be like, no, we were doing this. So anyways, I went right back into a class that wasn't honors. And man, and this is gonna sound probably boastful to some, but man, I coasted through school, man. Yeah. It was so easy to me that I was bored, and thus began my behavioral issues. I remember being in 8th grade, just being introduced to gang culture. I had a homeboy whose brother was Rich Rolling Neighborhood 20s Crip. And I wanted to be that so bad, because we're riding around in his car, and we're in 8th grade, bro. How old are you in 8th grade? 13, 12? And I remember being in a car with him, and 8th grade was my first beer, my first blunt, and we were just riding around with this guy, and he had like different girls with him all the time, and he was in high school, and we were hanging out with him, and he was a Crip, man, and I remember thinking, man, that seems pretty cool to me. Plus, look at all the girls he has. He's living like with no fear of what happens in his life, and his complete disregard for safety, and like it was this illusion of a great time, and like the adrenaline I remember experiencing with that whole, really my whole 8th grade year. Got pushed into 9th grade, where now I'm on their radar for wanting to be a part of what they're doing, and so it's crazy to go back and think about how you can pinpoint when certain things start to evolve for you, and you don't realize it while it's happening, obviously.
Hey guys, real quick. I know a lot of you guys are really doing everything you can to have a consistent workout routine, but the problem is you work out at a Globo gym. And so there's 17 guys on the bench that you need, and there's people doing bicep curls on the squat rack. And the biggest problem is not your schedule. It's actually where you're trying to get your work in. How about you guys stop making excuses and build yourself a home gym? And when you do, make sure you use Sorinex. So Sorinex is a family-owned and operated business that builds some of the most impressive workout facilities in the entire world. They built gyms for teams in the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and even the UFC. They've also built gyms for some of the biggest and most successful collegiate and high school athletic programs in the country. But in addition to that, they make the highest quality home gym products that I've ever seen on the market. In my personal home gym, I have the Sorinex Outfitter Rack, the heavy version in military green. Also, I have some of their center mass bells. I've got their Nordic glute ham developer and their patented landmine attached to my rack. So guys, stop fighting the riffraff at your local gym or bench or squat rack or whatever. And if you're going to build out a home gym, you may as well get one that will last you and one that you could even pass down to your kids. Begin your build out by going to Sorinex.com. That is Sorinex.com, Sorinex.com. Take control of where and when you work out, Sorinex.com. So we were talking about this at lunch, to where it's like the things I remember about you, you don't remember about you, because again, you're you and you have your own internal consciousness and all that. I'm just observing you.
Yeah.
And so I remember, us being in some classes together, 7th grade, to not having you in class anymore until 9th grade, when we were in like whatever class where they do the school play. Like, we're in that class. It was just kind of like it was
Miss
a screw off
Thurman.
class, and none of us took it seriously at all. And now I will say one caveat: we may have created the best television in the history of closed circuit middle schools.
Question, bro.
The name of the show was Chef Jeff.
Come on.
Okay. So we did a cooking
Boyardee.
show. Right. We did a cooking show. And so it was you, Chef Jeff. So, and it was me, Chef Pierre, Kyle.
Yeah,
and then
Kyle.
Avery Fennell was Chef Dome, right?
Jeff
and
Dome.
And Avery was like a foot taller than everybody the whole way through school. And so here we are in 9th grade.
He still is.
And and
shout out Avery, man.
Yeah, I haven't seen him forever, but we would shoot this show. But the whole point of the show is we weren't technically cooking.
No.
Like the first episode, we made Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
And so
we cooked them though.
Right, but we didn't make the pastries and do the whole thing. But we literally made this big, long process and explanation out of taking it out of the package and putting it in. And the one that I remember the most was we were doing Kool-Aid one time. But one of us thought it was a great idea to put 6 or 7 cups of sugar.
The whole bag of sugar, bro.
Right, in one thing. And we thought it was just going to be sweet and great. And we all took a sip at the same time, and none of us could talk. Right?
I remember that, actually.
And we're trying to figure out who's going to say the next thing, and none of us can get all the stuff out of our mouth at that point. And so, and that would be in the announcements that would be played at the end of school or whatever. So that would give some comic relief to the kids in 9th grade or whatever. But to get back to kind of the main point,
it was really genius if you think about it, Pierre Kyle. It was really smart.
I get called
bro.
a lot of names, and that's not been one of them for a long time.
Kyle.
Yeah, it was. I don't know what was up with that, but it sounded French, I guess.
We had the chef hats and everything.
Yeah,
man.
we did have the chef hats and the aprons and everything. So thanks, Miss Thurman, for letting us do that. But I do remember in 9th grade, even your affect changed. The way you walked around, the way you were talking around everybody. Certainly, your style changed a little bit. And there, you know how it is. There's always little rumblings about, who's dating who or who's going to get in a fight this weekend at, whatever, who took whose bike or whatever. And there just kept being you kept being associated with some folks. And in my head, even in 9th grade, I was like, wait, Jeff Goldberg, Jeff?
Yeah.
Right. Wrestling team, Jeff.
Yeah.
Right. This guy that's just killing it at wrestling practice and beating everybody in the runs and all that. But it just seemed and I didn't know any of that about who you were meeting and running around with in 8th grade. But I
don't think I even knew, Kyle, for real. I mean, until you, like I said, until you go back and try to diagnose some of the things. So in my personal recovery journey, right, in sobriety and leading a ministry called Celebrate Recovery, we teach a lot about amends and reconciliation with ourselves and with God and with others, right? And part of our step study program is to go back in retrospect and figure out how did I develop some of these behavioral issues that I have? And you can literally pinpoint, especially in prayer and in scripture, you can pinpoint by means of the Holy Spirit reasons why you became the way you became. And so I didn't even know this about myself until a few years ago when I started started going through this step study and Celebrate Recovery, where it pretty much forced me to pray about, God, help search my heart, my inner being to know why I am addicted to pornography. Why am I addicted to substances? Why do I get so mad at certain things, right? And I'm still going through it, right? But there's different ways God has been able to pinpoint certain things along my journey that I didn't even realize, especially while it's happening, right? So, and that's what we were talking about earlier today. You noticed a change and you probably had a little bit of denial, right? No, that's Jeff, that he's all right. You know what I mean? But really I wasn't, right? And to kind of speak to that a little bit, it was a perfect storm of mediocrity, right? It was not only did I have this, my best friend's brother was he wasn't really actively recruiting me, man. He was just being himself and doing what he does because he had decided to join a gang. I wanted what he had. And so I began to emulate him because I wanted what he had. I wanted his notoriety. I wanted his popularity, the style of his popularity. That's what I wanted more than anything because and it comes back to not really getting the nurture nurture from my own mom and the lessons from my own dad, even though I had both parents in the house, not really getting the love that I required as a child. And we can speak to that a little bit later on. I don't want to derail too much about that, but to try and find the love in these streets is essentially what happened, right?
Well, I would love to kind of dig into that, because that was the thing I was going to ask, is like, because this is what you typically get. So, guy becomes a gangbanger, gets busted doing something, goes to prison. Mm-hmm. There's almost never a dad. There's, the single mom with multiple kids. Yeah. There's the bad school. There's the no after school program.
It's very rare that someone who goes to Woodland Hills Elementary School,
right,
who lives on the west side of Lawton in the 90s, which, by the way, it's not like it used to be.
Yeah.
The west side is a little different now. But to be in honors classes, to have both parents in the home, to have both parents working, to be involved at church, it's almost... I don't want to say never, but I'd be willing to bet that it's a very low percentage, probably in the single digits, of those types of, especially young white boys, to become involved in criminal extracurricular activities, so to speak, right? So it all evolved around. Again, it's a perfect storm of really demonic presences, right, in the spiritual realm, in that battle that we fight every day, but. You go to church, but if your parents aren't emulating the lifestyle that they talk about at church, then church don't mean anything. It didn't matter if I'm there every day of the week, which it felt like I was. It doesn't matter if your parents are leading Sunday school classes. It doesn't matter if your grandparents are like deacons and elders in churches. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? But when you come home and you're experiencing infidelities of your father, when you're seeing your mother not really step out of her own comfort zones to minister and do different things, when you come home and it's different than it is at church, it's easy to not subscribe to what church is selling, right? And so that's number one, right? My spiritual life was non-existent. And it had the appearance, however, that it existed, if that makes sense. But if you're a sponge like brain, and you're going to church, but you see that the people that are closest to you are not living what they're trying to tell you to do, it's a little harder to live like that, right? And so that's the first thing, is just the sin in my own life and not having the discipleship and the example set before me to live for Christ, first and foremost. The second thing would be, I had a couple of friends that, they may have been raised on the same side of town, but, little did we know that it was... even my own circumstance, right? Like we lived in Woodland Hills because my grandma raised her kids there, and we went and moved in with her, and then she left, and we ended up like pretty much living in this house with minimal responsibility as far as finances go, because it was already good to go, if that makes sense, right? So even though we moved from 36th Street across the street from John Adams to Woodland Hills, it wasn't like we were affluent necessarily because we lived there. It was just...
You were affluent adjacent. You were kind of,
And so a lot of my friends were too, where, they were able to move into that side of town because they worked at Goodyear, or because their dad or mom was in the Army or whatever, but then at some point would lose their job or get out of the military and then end up, on some deadbeat path. And so, a lot of my friends, even though we grew up on this side or that side, we still ended up having a lot of the same stories because of a lack of parenting or a lack of money, right? And even my own parents, they both worked, but God bless them, they have no clue about money, man, and they have. Even to this day, and I don't mean to throw my own parents under the bus. I love my parents dearly, but I mean, the facts are the facts, man. We're not gonna lie on Undaunted. You feel me?
I guess.
But the truth is, a lot of money wasted, not a lot of stewardship, not a lot of giving, not a lot of paying attention to what we're doing, a whole lot of wasting, and because of that, I mean, it felt like we were still poor, if that makes sense, because we didn't have what other kids had. And I went to Woodland Hills, where you had kids that lived in White Acres,
Yep.
And, they're in your class with you, and you see them with new shoes all the time. You see them. And so I'm beginning to have this sense of jealousy already, this sense of wanting to be like everyone else except for myself. And it just kind of became the driving force of my life. And so that's kind of what I meant about my parents, is not really, number one, not really setting the biblical example as somebody who goes to church a lot should be doing. And it really drives me now to be a better spiritual leader of my own home, because I know my daughter needs to see what a real Christian looks like, man.
Well, Jeff, that's so important, because so many parents they want the church to catechize their children. They want the private school, Christian school with the cross in the lobby to disciple their kids.
Yeah.
They want somebody else to raise up their kids in the nurture and admonition of the Lord when it's not their responsibility. Now,
and
churches
really,
help.
it made me hate church too, man.
Right. Yeah. Because, you see the hypocrisy, because no one's going to understand the hypocrisy of your life more than your wife, and secondarily your children. Why? Because they live with you. They see you the most often. They see you get pissed off in traffic. They see you not, love your wife in a sacrificial way. They see you, haul off and, get crazy and do something stupid out of anger.
For sure.
And so when you're in that type of setup, you can see you're missing something from mom. You're missing something from dad. The church is trying to fill the gap, and most churches don't just naturally do a good job of that anyway. Mm-hmm. And so somebody's got to fill the cup, right? Now, had you not gotten out of the honors class system, maybe things would have been different. Who knows? Like, we don't live in a parallel universe. We can't know. But we do know is that you were attracted to the power and the gravitational pull of your buddy.
Yeah.
And it was like there was something there that was attractive.
Well, and
even though you had other options.
Right. But see, to make it even more attractive, and this is kind of what I was alluding to before, sorry for the listeners, man. I talk in circles. I apologize.
No, they're not even here. It's just us. Let's go.
I on the wrestling team, especially in 8th and 9th grade, I began to, I don't know, man. I had an inclination to be around the kids who were more underprivileged, especially more than myself, right? And that's just who I rocked with from the beginning.
We had quite a few of those on the team. Yeah.
And to the point where now I'm at their house, they're at my house, we're hanging out a lot, and we became like best friends. It became like it wasn't like the kids I went to elementary school with that were just kind of my friends by default because we all lived on the same street or whatever. I still have those relationships, no doubt, but these were like my first real, got into trouble with, did some stuff I shouldn't have done with homeboys. And I took it as like a facade of love, really. And really they were expressing love to me the same way that they were giving love to. So we all just thought we were loving each other. And ultimately, when you have, and they were in gangs, right? And so when you have them, they're not judging you. They're not the ones really roasting you anymore. You know what I mean? You kind of identify with them a little more than you do with the kids that were in your honors classes because, they too aren't getting new clothes every month or whatever, you know what I mean? And you hear stories about their dad, if he's even there. You hear stories about their mom, and you start to kind of see some parallels there to like, okay, you know what, these guys I can identify with these guys at least to a degree because some of their stories are similar to mine.
When it goes back to that chip on our shoulder. When you're from Lawton, you have that chip on your shoulder. And so it's like, you don't really get to claim Lawton when we were growing up, when you grew up on the west side, you lived in Wyatt Acres and all that. And I'm not saying anything bad about those folks because they were doing the best for their kids, but it's not the same type of upbringing, right? You're not worried about the same things.
And I was able to see that. I was able to see that early on, right? Yeah. Like I knew when I went to a friend's birthday party and he had a pool in the backyard, he was doing better than we were at our house, right? And I just remember just thinking, I want more for my life, but I thought it was in these things that don't matter now, right? And these material things. And I really thought that the more popular I became, the more outlandish I did things, the crazier I behaved, the worse my language got, the way that I dressed. Oh, eventually, you know what? I'm going to have to live up to what I'm claiming to be. Let's go ahead and join the gang too. And so I began to get recruited even as early as 8th grade, 9th grade. And I always knew that my parents could never find out. And so I never did it. But it got to the point in 10th grade where I was like, man, I'm going to do this, man. All my friends are in this already. I'm already out with them all the time. I'm already dressing like them. I'm already wearing the colors like them. And then the gang that I wanted to belong to, the neighborhood 20 Crips, they didn't want me. Right. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's show them. And the friends that I had were from a completely opposite rival gang. And they were like with open arms, bro. Like, yeah, come on, let's get it done, And so I went and got put on, and which just means that a couple of my best friends beat me up, you know what I'm saying? And they became my family, man, after that. And so, especially, you may have even noticed that high school was even worse for me than junior high was, because that's when my gang affiliation really became less of an affiliation and a real thing. Like, I went from trying to be like them and wanting what they had to, you know what, I'm going to do everything I can to prove to them and everyone else that I am who I say I am. And I became like diehard to the Hoover Criminals, bro. I became to the point where I knew I needed to be anywhere they were. One thing I heard from someone along the way of my journey was, wannabes are gonna-bees, bro. You might look at me in 7th grade and say, this Goldberg t-shirt wearing fool is a wannabe. Well, you know what? If he wants it enough, he'll become that, bro. A wannabe is a gonna be. And now that I have solidified myself as not only a person from Hoover, but I'm also a person who, there's not, especially in the early 2000s, late 90s, there weren't a lot of white guys gang banging. Like, now you go to Lawton and everybody's in a gang. It's crazy. And so I kind of wore that as a badge of honor. I've even got a tattoo on I've got the word groove tattooed on the back of my neck. I've got white boy groove tattooed right here. I mean, when they give you your street nickname and they call you, hey, that's white boy from Hoover. That's white boy Groover. You know what? Let's call him white boy Groove, man. That's our guy. I wore that like a badge of honor, bro. That was like a term of endearment for me to be accepted by somebody finally. So a switch goes off in my mind in about 11th grade. I don't owe nobody nothing except these folks. These are my folks. These are my people. These are the guys that I'm going to go to war with. And you know what's crazy, Kyle? What I wanted was actually happening, right? Camaraderie. I got a lot more girlfriends, right? I was getting as high as I wanted to get, right? I mean, you're smoking weed in high school, you pretty much the man, I can go anywhere and do anything I wanted. We were fighting all the time. This is before everybody had a gun with a switch on it and were killing each other, It was still happening, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. Like, we would go to the park in Lawton View and have complete gang brawls, you know what I'm saying? Different things were just happening. And I loved being that white boy from the set. I loved being that guy who, if you needed a dub sack of weed, you could call him and he'd give it to you. I loved being that guy who could brag on Monday who he got head from over the weekend. You know what I'm saying? I love, and it all attributed to, what I wanted to do with my life. And the only reason that I stayed in school was to wrestle. Wrestling was my only outlet where I could really honestly be myself. But even on the wrestling team, I don't know if you remember, man, but our wrestling team in Eisenhower was thugged out, man.
It was.
Our whole wrestling team, you were affiliated in some way or another, unless you were like Chad Carden. Carden was like the only one on the team. Shout out Chad, man. I ain't seen Chad in a while. He was the only one on the team that wasn't like gangbanging or something.
Right.
But even
he still a real tough kid.
You know what I mean?
I actually, so there's an interesting parallel of things that I don't know if you noticed, and I don't know if something happened our senior year that made the gangs feel different.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, because I remember mainly the Hoovers, because I feel like I saw a lot of blue and orange.
There was a lot of us,
so I remember seeing that a lot. And the interesting thing about me at Lawton Eisenhower was I was affiliated with a lot of different groups because I was an athlete. So the athletic guys were accepting of me. I also loved metal and went to metal shows and all that. So all the goth kids and metal kids, I listened to the same music as them so I could get along with them. I was also in the honors AP classes, so all the smart kids. So I just had a lot of different people that I could talk to. But then when you have a Hoover in high school tell you, hey, if you ever need us, you just let me know.
Yeah.
And you know what that means. And then you have some dude from Cash that's like, hey man, if you ever get stuck in a ditch, something like that, you just let me know, we'll get you out. Like, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you belong. Sure, yeah. But the gangs were always a joke. The gangs were always just kind of like a punchline for a joke. It was all these wannabe gangbangers in Lawton, right? I mean, these aren't Bloods and Crips from Compton. Like, these aren't real guys. But our senior year of high school, there's a 7-Eleven right across the street.
Before you get into it,
yeah, go ahead.
Let me speak to what you just said.
Yeah,
that's the problem, though, with not just our community, but even it could exist in Edmond, right, where you could take something for a joke, but the people who are involved with it are absolutely serious, bro. Yep. And so to be exposed to it, I remember my first funeral as a gang member, and I remember that being so eye-opening to me to know, number one, this homeboy I was just smoking a blunt with last weekend is dead now. And then to see that, like, the eye-opener for me at this first funeral I ever experienced as a gang member with a gang homeboy was to see, like, the generational bloodlines of gang membership. Where, remember, I'm from a home where both parents are there and they're married.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? We go to church. I was just in honors classes last year. You know, it was unheard of to me that my homeboy such and such from this street is really the byproduct of like 5 generations of gang members, bro, from the 70s and 80s,
right,
where, you know, all his uncles and his mom are Hoovers. You know what I'm saying? To where you see people coming in from out of town, like Frederick, full of Hoovers in the 90s and 2000s. I don't know about now. Coming down from Oklahoma City to this day, Eastside Oklahoma City is Hoover Central, bro, right? And really all over the city now. It's all kinds of different gangs intertwined. And the reality is, yeah, it wasn't like Compton or South Central. The reality is a lot of those guys who fled from LA County, who were members of these gangs, they came eventually settling in places like Tulsa and OKC and Lawton, especially in the late 80s, early 90s, fleeing for whatever reason.
Well, there were some factories. I remember talking to a DA here in Oklahoma City, one of the assistant DAs actually, and there was like it was like a car factory, some big factory in California shut down. And most of the dudes were clicked up in that factory, and they moved the factory to Oklahoma.
Makes sense.
And they said, you can either stay here and not have a job, or you can move to Oklahoma and keep your job. And by the way, you'll get paid the same, and you'll technically make more because cost of living out there is. And so a lot of those guys picked up their families, and they moved to Oklahoma, and they just established kind of like a satellite of their set here or whatever.
And that's how it's happened really across the country, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, where like a satellite, like a cell was being orchestrated there because they were fleeing from where it was actually deriving from. I mean, it's reached New York City, man, where you've got real Crips there, you know, where it originated in the late 60s, early 70s in LA. Now it's all over the world, bro. And anyway, so, but you're absolutely right. Like from the outside looking in, it could be a joke. But when my eyes were open to how serious this was, when I went to a gang meeting in Lawton View and saw people coming in from Inglewood, California, people from actual Hoover Street, you know what I mean, from LA County coming to Lawton to tell our big homies what needed to happen. When I witnessed the organizational crime that was happening, not only was I like crazily inspired, right, but that's when it was like, no, this is real. I'm a part of something that is like world renowned, bro. Right. Like this is so dope to me, and so that assisted with like my wanting to really prove that I am who I say I am. So wannabes are gonnabes. I became that, especially to the point where I got into a lot of. I'll tell you what happened, man. After we graduated. Well, anyway, before I get on to that, talk about senior year. What happened at Circle K, bro?
I'll just set you up because you actually know what happened, and I'll just give it from my perspective.
I was there for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a Circle K or 7-Eleven, which I can't remember what it was at the time, right across the street from our high school. Yeah. And so that was a spot where on lunch break, if you didn't eat lunch in the cafeteria and you didn't have a car to drive off campus to go to Taco Bell or whatever, you would just walk across, get you a Sprite and a honey bun, and then, go back to class eventually whenever. So people would kind of congregate over there. And the word was that a bunch of So this is how the news talked about it, because the news isn't talking about.
Tell me what the news said, and then I'll tell you what happened from my end.
So, because I kind of heard a little bit, but what the news said is a group of kids from Lawton High decided they were going to come over and fight a group of kids from Eisenhower. So what they made it sound like was a football rivalry, right? Because at the time, Lawton High and Lawton Ike were the two 6A schools in there, both pretty good at football. We were a little better while we were in high school than they were, but, both pretty good at football. That's what they made it seem like. But this wasn't just fists. Dudes from there were bats, there were chains, there were other things going on, and it was all anyone could talk about in Lawton was this group of Lawton High kids fighting this group of Eisenhower kids. But then afterwards, I feel like that was almost like an inflection point to where people in Lawton had to get real about, okay, the gangs aren't just playing around. They're not just hanging bandanas out of the back of their starched jeans anymore. They're not just changing out the laces on their shoes to indicate, that they're in some sort of club or, civic organization that's kind of, underground or whatever. It's like, wait, there's serious stuff happening. There's serious drug-related, violence-related activities that are going on that's being propagated right under our noses. Yeah. And I feel like people didn't really want to deal with it. So that's what was said, and that's how people kind of saw it. But you kind of knew what was going on.
Oh, yeah. So, and to speak to that very quickly, it used to be where gang activity, like that gang activity has been in Lawton since the 70s, bro.
And you're right. Most of it was meet up at the View and we're going to fist fight.
But it was confined to the neighborhood.
That's right.
It was confined to where these people lived, right? And it was even more constructed around what street you grew up on, right? There was a time where Lawton View only had Hoovers and 90s Crips, right? And when they first were established, we were more aligned with each other, not only because of proximity to each other, but because we were all Crips at the time, right? And it was just unheard of that Crips and Crips would be beefing with each other. But as things happen down the line, if you go to LA County right now, Crips kill Crips, bro. It is what it is. And you could get killed by a person in your own set. That's just how it happens, right? Homies came from LA to Lawton, into Oklahoma City, into Tulsa, into wherever else they had cells at, right? And they gave us instructions to say, you guys aren't Crips anymore. We're going to keep the C, though. Now we're just going to call yourself criminals. And the reason we're not Crips anymore is because all of our enemies in LA are Crips. We've got more blood homies than we do Crips. Even to this day in Lawton, the Crips and the Hoovers are beefing, bro. And in Lawton, there's all kinds of gangs that have just sprouted up that have no real root anywhere. But aside from that, I'm only mentioning that because this was the moment that, we should take it seriously. But for those of us in the know, we already knew that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know what direction it was headed.
This was the first time, however, it was out in public, bro. Like it might happen at Central Mall, right? It might happen at the skate arena, at these places where kids are known to just be violent anyway because you've got kids from all over coming to the same place, right? But this was the first time it happened during school, at a gas station, on the west side.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. It's right across the street, right? It's a less than a block from the country club, bro, the golf course, and in the middle of the day, it's 11:30 in the morning, bro, and this is happening. So I'll give you some insight, man. I'll never forget this day for a bunch of reasons.
I've been wondering what went on for the last 20-some years.
This had to have been, it had to have been our final semester of high school, man.
Yeah, it was spring 2004.
Yeah.
Spring 2004.
So, the day before, well, actually, the weeks leading up, I had a homeboy from Hoover, and I'm probably going to get in trouble with the homies, but they'll be okay. I love you guys. They
statute of limitations has a long since expired.
They know what I'm on, man.
Yep.
They know what I'm on, and I'd like to think that if a majority, at least the ones I call my brothers to this day, they respect what's going on and what we're trying to do, right? So, and they know I'm not speaking any ill will. I'm just telling the truth without, and I'm not even going to mention names, right? But I remember the homeboy started messing with this female from MacArthur. It wasn't Lawton High, it was MacArthur. I remember that she was doing her thing with him or whoever, and I remember that it just so happened to be that the ex-boyfriend or the current boyfriend, whatever he was from the east side, was also a member of a rival Crip gang. the 60s Crips, who we were already beefing with the 60s Crips and the 90s Crips. Anybody that with a neighborhood Crip card, so to speak, was beefing with anybody from Hoover, right? And so that was an active beef for a little bit of time. Even to this day, this beef exists in all over the country, right? It's just kind of known that if you're from Hoover or you got beef with somebody from neighborhood Crip, no matter if they're 60th Street, 90th Street, 100th Street, whatever. By the way, we claim these gangs of avenues we've never walked on. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
To claim Hoover as my street, to have it tattooed on my body, and I've never been to a Hoover Street in my life is ridiculous.
That's
but
something.
Nonetheless, man, he began to talk to this guy's girlfriend, and I'd like to think he did it just because we were rivalries already. I don't know. They started kicking it. They started, getting involved. And at some point, I'm pretty sure she got pregnant and some other stuff. I remember the day before the incident at the gas station, it was after school and we were just walking. I think we had just left track practice probably. And we were only doing that because there was girls on the track team, man. And, I'm walking with the homeboys, and there's probably 5 or 6 of us, and we're just walking to somebody's vehicle in the parking lot behind the school, and this Cadillac pulls up, and it's this dude from 60s, and we know him from 60s. We also know him from just being an East Side guy, and we've already got beef with these guys already, so we're automatically at 100, ready to go, because we see him pull up, and we're thinking, oh man, he's getting ready to shoot us right here at the school. And I remember he hung out the window and he said, man, we ain't even on nothing right now except for such and such girl name, right? And I know that you such and such, blah, blah, blah. So him and my homeboy, they started kind of going back and forth. Well, there's only 2 of them in the car. I'm guessing they didn't have a strap with them. So they left, right? And I remember him leaving and saying, okay, we got something for y'all. You know what I'm saying? Because it went from they're having a dispute about a girl, right? Almost always happens like this, bro. They're having a dispute over a female, and then it turns into now we're dissing each other's neighborhoods, and we're dissing each other's insignia and dissing each other's colors and stuff like that. We diss each other's sets, man. And that's just a no-no, man. You just don't do that unless you're prepared to die for it. And we knew that, and we were okay with that because this is what we represent. This is our brand, and, come with it. Well, the very next day, an individual, the individual that we were beefing with, I think he was out of school by then. He was at least a year older than us, probably. He goes and gets his little brothers who are in like 8th and 9th grade at MacArthur Junior High at the time. He goes and gets another one of his homeboys who actually went to Eisenhower with us, but was like an undercover 60. We didn't even know he was from 60s, you know what I'm saying? But I guess he was. He just didn't make himself known because he was outnumbered probably. He had a homeboy. Get this. This is Lawton for you, okay? He has his homeboy that's from 60s Crip has a little brother, same mom, same dad, who is a blood. So you've got a Crip and a blood who live in the same home, raised by the same people in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
That just kind of speaks to the unorganization of the gang life in Lawton, where you could have a cousin who's an enemy or a little brother who's an enemy. Well, they weren't enemies though, because Hoover had beef with everybody, not just with Crips, but at that time with Bloods too. So you had some Bloods, because of this sibling relationship, you had some Bloods show up with some 60s Crips to the Circle K on that corner across the street from our school. And I remember being in Coach Whiteley's weightlifting class, bro. I had second lunch. And I remember being in there and we were supposed to like play a pickup game of football or something. Well, in this same 4th period class, we all had second lunch, right?
Yeah.
In this same 4th period class were all my homeboys that I was just with the day before when we got into it. And I remember thinking, because we had already had it planned, hey, when we get done with school today, we're going to hop in the car and we're going out to the East Side and we're going to handle business with these guys. And we're going to do it on their turf just to prove a point to them. You know what I'm saying? Well, when I go into weightlifting, I'm looking around and none of the homies are in there. All right. So I'm like, hey, Coach Wiley, I need to go to the bathroom real quick. He lets me go to the bathroom, right? The bathroom.
Yeah.
And so, man, I'm looking and I'm trying to find, I don't even see what's going on. And then all of a sudden I'm just walking around the side of the school thinking maybe they just skipped it to go to lunch or something. And, in the front of Eisenhower, sometimes you could congregate right there, or you could go to the gas station. That's normally where we went because we could smoke cigarettes and stuff over there, right? Or blacks or whatever. And so I start walking and I see, as soon as I get ready to cross the street, I see like 3 cars pull up. One of them is this huge old school red Suburban.
Yep.
Another one is that same caddy that we seen the day before. And I'm like, oh man, it's gonna go down right now. So I'm running across the street with some Chucks on, some orange Chucks with fat blue laces and some Dickie shorts.
Remember those?
I run across the street and get right into the mix, man. And we're in there, we're fighting, we're easily outnumbered. There's probably 5 or 6 of us, and they've got like probably 12 or 13 individuals. And we know all of them, but we're confused because their Bloods and Crips teamed up together to beat us up. And I mean, I'd like to say I held my own. I did not. They were out there. They definitely were swinging baseball bats. They hit my homeboy in the head with a bat. I remember the dogs showing up, the police showing up, started macing all of us. So now we've got mace in our eyes. Before anything, no one got arrested, which was crazy. They ended up getting back in the car and taking off, right? And because we know who they are and what it's about, we just kind of had this pledge of vengeance prepared, right? And we go back into school, and I remember Miss Anderson, our principal, was trying to calm us down and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And that was when the school administration became aware of my gang affiliation. And then that's when my parents became aware of my gang affiliation, because all of this had happened on this same day. One of the reasons I'll never forget about it. And then I remember it was just the buzz of the school all day long, bro. Yep. And as a result of that, we weren't allowed to wear our shirts untucked anymore.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just crazy. But weren't allowed to wear backpacks. Like, you couldn't wear a shirt that was too tall. And in 2004, man, we were all wearing 3X white tees back then, And so anyways, I remember after school that day, it was like the entire school of Eisenhower hopped in a vehicle, and we all went to Hoppensack on the east side to wait. And we all skipped 6th period, which was the last period of the day back then, to go and wait for them to get out of school. And I remember being at Hoppensack, there's like 30 cars of people, and most of us are Hoovers, and we ready to get our lick back for what had just happened to us at the gas station. And we never saw them. So we're getting ready to get back in the vehicles and leave. And as we're leaving, we see the 2 little brothers that were junior high kids, not the ones we actually had issues with, but the family, the kin, and they're 60s Crips nonetheless. And we see them walking up to the Hoppensack. They see us, and they turn around and they book it. And we chase them like 30 deep across that field that's right there at Hoppensack.
Yep.
They get in the vehicle. Police get involved. Long story less long, bro. After I told the whole long story already, that kind of just sparked like this different level of gang beef in Lawton. So it wasn't just we were traveling across the town to come fight each other, which eventually elevated to now people are dying. You know what I'm saying? And I've got tattoos on my body right now to represent some of what we would have considered to be fallen soldiers back then, to this war that we had started. And it really, even though we had beef and stuff already, it really kind of went to the next level when somebody's girlfriend got involved, bro. And that's kind of how it happened. So I know that I gave you a lot more details than you asked for, but that's exactly what happened.
That's exactly what I wanted, because I just remember at the time when your grandma asks you what happened at school that day, because it's on KSWO when you're trying to they're trying to make heads or tails of the situation. But I do remember whenever I left and got the scholarship to UCO, moved to Edmond, that first semester I would still come back home on the weekends, and I would still kind of check out the football games and still hang out with my buddies. And then just things really started to change.
It got crazy
in Lawton, and that's whenever, because this is what I always told people about the gangs. I said the gangs in Lawton, again, I said, they're just kind of a joke, and they don't mess with people, right? Because my grandma Bonnie lived in a gang neighborhood, a bad one, right? She lived near Pat Henry. And, who is more susceptible than an 80-something-year-old, 90-pound woman that lives alone, right?
Well, see, there was rules back then,
right.
too.
And so there was kind of honor amongst thieves. It was kind of the thing. Rules. So they never bothered them. My grandma Dee and Grandpa Robert were in a different neighborhood, kind of over where Sweeney used to be and different things like that. Rougher neighborhood, never got messed with, right? And there was some Section 8 around there as well. Never got messed with.
The POs are over there.
Right.
Oh.
And then the problem is again, it wasn't fights at the View. It was fist fights in the mall, like you said, or fist fights in public, fist fights no matter where around town. Then people started getting stabbed. Then people started getting shot. And then kind of like what you said, there were these random gangs with no affiliation to the area, like popping up as well. Then you hear all these things about MS-13 running people through I-44 and using like Lawton as a stopover.
Oh, yeah.
And also you would have guys that would be, you would have dudes that would be affiliated, right, from their hometowns, wherever in America. And they would join the Army and they would get stationed in Lawton, which is Fort Sill. That's the artillery base that's there. And then they would just join in with the ready-made sets that were already there in town.
Or they would form their own and they would have beef with the ones that were here already.
Right. Yep. And so they're like, no, y'all aren't the real whatever. We are.
Yeah. And
I just remember like talking to my dad and like talking to my, different people back home. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I'm in Edmond. It's just kind of like a different world. This kind of feels like Camelot, compared to, where I grew up. But it just seemed like everything really popped off starting in that senior year. And it didn't have anything to do necessarily with the timing than just about what people started doing and how they started acting.
I wish I could
themselves.
pinpoint exactly what
that was an inflection point,
everything. Well, that's when the rest of the city became aware. Right. And we just kind of knew, like, it's just another day at the office for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it was the scales fell from the rest of our eyes and we were kind of disabused of our ignorance. You know what I mean?
Well, and even myself, right? Like, I began to lose this true sense of me to where now, you know what, this is what I have decided to do. I will die for this. I will kill for this. This is my family and no one else will ever understand. I'm doing what, I was meant to do. And I really believe that, even though in the back of my mind, I knew I had no business doing these things because I wasn't raised like this, bro. Whereas my counterparts were raised like this. Like, you can go, their world is this, like, this is existence. This is normal. This only looks weird if you weren't raised like this, and even to this day, you have kids who think it's normal to live a certain way, and then when you try to teach them that there's a better way, they act like they don't understand what you're talking about because this is what's engraved in them. Whereas for me, I did have some home training, even though it wasn't the best. I still had a lot more opportunities afforded to me than any of my homeboys did. And to experience kind of both worlds and to have to hide it from my parents and hide it from people at the church and still live like that at school and all these things. And by the way, wanted to wrestle in college. I don't know why I thought I could do all of that at the same time. It didn't work out. In fact, I got suspended for gang stuff the week of regionals, my senior year wrestling, and didn't even get to go compete my senior year. I had a ranking in the state. I had just placed 5th at regionals the year before my junior year. Back then, you had to place top 4 in your region to go to the state tournament, and I got 5th. So I just knew senior year I had a really good record. I'm talking like single-digit losses, a bunch of first placements, a state runner-up from Lawton High. I almost beat him, so like I just knew.
You're right there.
I'm on. Not only am I going to make the tournament, I'm going to place at the tournament. I even have a shot, maybe even make the finals and win the whole thing. And then the schools will take me seriously, and I can. By that time, I was already ready. Like, even though this is what I want to do is gangbang, it would be okay if I left Lawton. Like, I'd be okay. Like, that'd be the only way out of this at this point is to go to school and leave forever, right? And it didn't happen because the regionals is on Friday. I got suspended on Wednesday, bro. And I definitely tried to fight Mr. Harwell in the hallway of Eisenhower High School, even though, thinking back on it, Mr. Harwell was like 9 feet tall. He probably could have beat me up. I don't know. But like
he may not have been able to defend the double leg, but
maybe not. But I made such a fool of myself that week that my coach tried to go and fend for me, and it didn't happen. So I mean, even that was like a turning point for my life where I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing this. I'm not going to school. I'm just gonna sell dope and have fun and do whatever, And then everything kind of came crashing down on me in about almost Christmas time after we graduated. I had another homeboy get shot and killed. I was working as an overnight custodian at Cameron University. And I don't know if you remember, but I used to make shirts and stuff. I was selling shirts. And,
yeah, you would like iron on the shirts and then sew around the edges because when we were the Blue Body Brigade or whatever, you made our basketball shirts
for sure. Yeah. And, well, actually, I gave you the recipe and you made them. I think.
All right. Well, no, I think you even came over to our house. I came over to help and like
you
helped
and Jeff
us because
Hooper, I think.
Yeah, Jeff Hopper, Craig Kimbrough, and Jerry Dorfler and some different guys, and Pablo Sandoval and like. Not Sandoval. That's a baseball player. Anyway, Pablo
Santiago.
Different. I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I remember them guys.
But yeah, you came over because you gave me the instructions.
You, Jerry, and Jeff were at this. That's a bunch of redheads in there. I know, man.
That's a problem. It's definitely too many recessive genes all at the same place. Philip Smith, yeah, there was a bunch of us in there. But no, you explained to us how to do it, and I remember I came over there.
I remember coming over there and doing that. But anyway, so I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna hustle my way through life. Then that's what I'm gonna do. Well, I ended up. Oddly enough, man, I ended up teaming up with somebody from a rival set, and that's not good. I mean, that's frowned upon. And mind you, I'm not their family. I was grafted in, so to speak, right? And accepted by them. So I definitely didn't have a means to break the rules. And there's these rules written, and one of them is you don't even do business with a rival gang member. And that's what I did. I had teamed up with somebody from a rival gang, and we were selling dope together, and we were making a little bit of money, and we were kind of in and out of these different circles. And I was trying to do that in private, but it ended up blowing up in my face to the point where now I'm in trouble with my own homies. And the only way to get in good with my own homies is to go out here and do these other things to these people. And really, I realized how much of a gangster I was not in that moment. And eventually, afraid for my life, really, bro, was the only thing left to do was to go to the Army. And that's when I joined the Army was, man, I'm in trouble with my own homeboys. I'm in trouble with rival gangs. There's people that want to see me dead. And it's not like they were, I wasn't that important to where they had to stop everything they were doing to kill me. But if they were to see me in public, they have no option but to carry out some act of violence. And that's when it became real to me that maybe I don't want to do this, at least not if it's going to, like I said, I would die for this. But when it came time to die for it, I wasn't ready. I don't think
I mean this, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm really built for this, bro. And so I joined the Army. And I did really well in basic. It was the first time I had not, done some sort of substance, whether it be alcohol or marijuana or something like that. It forced me to be away from that environment. It was really good for me. I excelled at basic training. Graduated, I think, number 1 in my basic training class. Got awards for that. Was doing really good. I even was going to chapel again and starting to hear, reading. I remember reading Ephesians, man, and just really being convicted by it. Like, okay, this is actually real. Like, this isn't fake. But that was one of those second chances that I didn't take advantage of. As soon as I got out of basic and went to AIT in Georgia, I got linked up with some guys who were fleeing from their gang, right? And which sounds crazy to say, like different people from different places, right? And you come together, and everybody's got a chance to be somebody different now. We all knew we linked together because we all had similar interests and backgrounds, and we just picked up where we left off when we left home and kind of formed our own little clique, right? And so now I'm at AIT getting into trouble. Now I'm at AIT still smoking and figuring out how to pass a urinalysis by using someone else's pee. You know what I mean? Figuring out how to manipulate the system however I could, to the point where I almost got kicked out of the Army in AIT. And so I became really good about living my double life and hiding everything and pretending to be something, at least on paper, that I wasn't being in private. And so I was becoming my parents, right? I was becoming this total hypocrite, not even just from a spiritual sense, because I didn't know Jesus yet at all, really, but just in the sense of I wasn't who I said I was. Like to the homies, I was trying to fabricate this level of gangsterism to this clique that I had formed with these guys in the military. I had, I was even ashamed to say I was from Oklahoma. I was pretending I was from somewhere else just so they would, love me and accept me into their little clique, right? To eventually moving on to Fort Polk, Louisiana, where here I have another chance I kept having these second chances.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it was like, okay, as long as I can start over somewhere in a completely different place, I can reestablish who I am. And really everywhere I went was just a new version of the same lie. And I got in trouble at Fort Polk. I got married to someone that I was talking to in high school. That was just a mess in and of itself. Just total. We were cheating on each other. We were physically harmful to each other. We were drinking a lot. I was only like 19 when I married her. She had just got out of high school, was barely 18. One thing led to another. I had fast tracked, bro. I had got E4 promotable. I was getting ready to make the E5 list. And you normally don't do that in 2 years in the Army unless you're doing a lot of good. I'm 300 out of 300 PT scores. And the Army, like the soldier side of the Army was really easy to me because of wrestling. And right. I knew that the background, when you're from Lawton, you feel like you can do anything, And, but we got caught stealing cartons of cigarettes from the shopette. They didn't have like a method of like loss prevention where it would like an alarm would go off if you walked out of there. They didn't have cameras or anything like that. You could pretty much, it was just the Wild West in there, man. And my first wife had a job at the shopette, and it was like on the training side where nobody goes. And I would go through there, and she would put like, I'm talking boxes of cartons of Marlboro Reds and Newports. And I would put them in a Ford Focus, man, and drive them back to the house. We're in the Army now. Oh, I am. And I'm almost 3 years in the Army at this point, and she gets caught in the act of stealing them. And when they take her to the MP station, she reveals the whole thing. They come and get me. She's already got a written statement. I wasn't going against my wife on what she said, so I admitted to it. And they ended up taking all my rank, taking some money, put me on 45 days extra duty. While I was on extra duty, they were getting ready to deploy to Iraq. I came down on orders to because I had re-enlisted about a month before I got in trouble, and terms of my contract were still legal and valid to PCS to go to a different place. And I wanted to go back to Georgia, where I went to AIT, tech school, or whatever you want to call it. And so towards the end of my 45 days extra duty, I came down on orders to have a permanent change of duty station, or PCS. And we collectively gathered our things. My wife and I at the time, we went and moved to Georgia. And here I am again, got a new start. I don't have to be, I don't have to worry about lying on a UA. I can get my drinking together. My wife, we can establish what we've got. We've left our mistresses and our boyfriends behind. So we had agreed like, hey, let's just start all over. And I was still probably 21 at the time. Maybe not even 21 yet. And we moved to Georgia. Get to Georgia, everything's going good. I start fast tracking again. I'm not smoking and drinking as much. I get all my rank back. I get a promotable status again, all within like 18 months, doing really well. I won a Brigade Soldier of the Year award, right, for the whole brigade. And it was all like combat based, like land navigation and shooting your rifle and rucksack marching. Like I was all about that side of the Army because it was easier to me to do these things because I was just a rough kid, and I was excelling, bro. And but I still didn't know who Jesus was, and I was attributing all this success to myself, right? And one thing led to another, and my wife and I start having problems again. She starts working, and she starts carrying out a full-blown relationship with another man at her job. I find out about that. I lose my cool. A bunch of things occur. I end up moving back into the barracks at Fort Gordon, Georgia. She ends up leaving and coming to Lawton. Divorce occurs. All of that happens. And then in the midst of divorce, I decided, well, you know what? I'm 21, 22. Let's go have some fun, you know? And then even I hadn't been in the barracks culture for a couple years now, right? But now I'm back in barracks culture, which is just lonely soldiers drinking. Okay. Sadly, that's what it is. At least that's what it was then, right? And I'm pretty sure it's that way now. And I'm coming off a divorce. I'm mad at everybody. I start just acting a fool. I start smoking again. I get introduced to a substance called Spice, or K2, which is a synthetic version of marijuana that doesn't show up in your urine, right? And so I start doing that. Then I get put on orders to go on a deployment assignment to Jamaica, right? Jamaica, Kyle. Okay. I don't know if you heard about Jamaica.
Not Jamaica, Texas, but yeah.
They smoke the ganja.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man. And I'm pretty sure my accent is off, but
it's pretty close. My wife and I got married in Jamaica, and the number of times that we were offered softball-sized handfuls of weed while just walking around the beach, we're like, yeah, no thanks.
So mind you, I've already lost my rank. I've already been threatened to get kicked out a couple times. I'm fleeing from criminal activity, yet still involved in it somehow. By the way, anytime I came home, which was once a year, I wasn't even linking up with my little brother and my parents and my family. I was linking up with the homies who somehow I'd forgotten just a year prior I was in the mix with all of them. So it's like I had got over this, you know what I'm saying? Like this fear that I had from my life that led me to join the Army in the first place was kind of combed over. My homies were just happy to see me. So I'm still affiliated. I'm still carrying that out. So now I feel like a sense of loyalty to them. So everywhere I go, whether it's Louisiana, Georgia, Jamaica, wherever, they know me as Groove. Right? They know me as a gang-affiliated member of the Hoovers because that's how I'm carrying myself in the nightclubs. That's how I'm carrying myself in, you know, if we're not in a platoon formation, that's who you're going to know me to be. Like, I'm a kid from Lawton, Oklahoma. And by the way, now all of a sudden I'm proud to be from there, right? I'm a kid from Lawton, Oklahoma, and I'm a Hoover Crip or a Hoover criminal, whatever you can believe, right? And I just got worse and worse and worse as far as what I would try to do to prove myself. Well, anyway, I get sent to Jamaica. I'm finally back on the right track after my first Article 15. And we decide the day we got there, me and my homeboy from Birmingham, Alabama, he goes, hey, man, while we're here, man, we should find some weed. And I'm just like, all right. And there was only like 4 of us on this assignment from our unit. And we were there to like establish radio communications and stuff like that. That was my job in the Army. So I've always been a nerd, by the way. But we get there the day we get on the bus off of the plane. We get off the plane, get on the bus, getting ready to go to a hotel in Jamaica. And I asked the bus driver, like, hey, man, at some point we need to get some weed, so show us where to go. He stops, pulls over the bus, right? Gets off of the bus, is gone probably 5 milliseconds, bro, comes right back on the bus with this wad of like kush and just hands it to me. Didn't even charge me no money. And now, mind you, my NCO, my boss, is sitting behind me. And I just kind of look at him. You know what I mean? And he just looks at me and pretty much says, yeah, we can do that. So my NCO, my leadership was like, yeah, we're in Jamaica. It's the first night we're here. I'll smoke with you. So we ended up smoking. You know what I mean? So I'm smoking with my boss right now. So at my young mind, I'm like, oh, man, we're good. We can get away with whatever we want now. We smoking every day. Smoking every day. I'm there for like 6 months, at least assigned there for 6 months. We're scheduled to go back to Georgia on June 1st, 2008, okay, 2009. And May 1st rolls around, and me and my Alabama homeboy, we're like, hey, you know, it takes 30 days to get this out of your system. You know they're going to piss us when we get back. So let's just have like one last celebratory blunt, bro, of this Jamaican ganja, and let's just call it a day, and then we'll spend the next few weeks getting it out of our system so we'll be good to go, coast free, right? Well, I not even joking, Kyle, man. We took about 3, maybe 4 grams of Jamaican high grade stuff, and we put it and roll it into about 4 cigars worth of wrap, okay? And so I'm talking like, for those looking at it on camera, man, like it's probably a foot long, right? And not a $5 one either, you know?
Yeah.
And I put it to my lips, and I'm like, we're helping each other smoke it. That's how long this blunt is. And as soon as I light it and start to take a tote of it, military policemen walk around and catch us with it. And we've got it in our hands. And there's like no getting out of this. We even tried to say what it was and like it wasn't this and that. And anyway, we were caught literally with the weed in our hands, bro. And we were, it's crazy to talk about this now, but me knowing I already had an Article 15, in my mind, I just knew they're about to kick me out the Army for this, right? And I'm ashamed of myself. I don't want to be that guy to be sent back home because I'd have messed up again, right? This goes back to the week of regionals my senior year, messed it up, right? Even my gang life, I messed up. I broke the rules there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like everything along the way, I messed up when I was on the fast track at Fort Polk, Louisiana. I done messed up again. I keep sabotaging my own success, man. And I didn't want to face it. So I waited we were in a hotel that was like maybe 4 stories high in New Kingston, Jamaica. And it was really a beautiful place, man. But they had MPs at my door because they said I was a suicide threat and all that because I might have said some things. I don't know. And I decided, you know what? I'm going AWOL. And I took bed sheets like out of a freaking movie, bro, and threw them down 3rd floor terrace, balcony area, and I leave. All I have is a few things. I leave all my baggage and stuff there. I just take a few things of clothes. I call a girl that I had been messing with while I was on the island, and she came and picked me up, and she took me about 3 hours around the island to the other side of the island, completely away from where we were. And they woke up the next day to take me back to Georgia, put me on a plane. They couldn't find me. And so now they're trying to find me, and at some point, probably maybe 5 or 6 hours after this all happened, you know, I wake up and I decide, you know what, I'm going to call my dad and tell him what I've just done. And I remember the realest conversation my dad ever had with me happened on this day. I called him from like a prepaid international cell phone, bro. And I called him and I tell him, hey, man, I just want to let you know I messed up again. And he's like, okay, well, hey, man, we make mistakes. Face the music and we'll go from there. I was like, yeah, well, about that, Pop. I'm
a little different music.
I'm AWOL right now, bro. And he goes, what? And so we kind of get into it on the phone to the point where now I'm crying and he's just kind of letting me know about myself, you know. And he says, so what are you going to do? You're a white boy in Jamaica with no employment. You're AWOL from the military. If you were to even try to sneak back, you wouldn't be able to do that. But let's just say you were successful in getting back into the country as a white boy in Jamaica. Even if you were successful, do you know that there'll be a warrant for your arrest and all these different things? Like, man, call them people and take your ass back, bro.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right. So I called them. They came and got me. Next day I was on a plane. And, you know, as soon as I get back to my duty station, my battalion headquarters, my sergeant major, my first sergeant, and my battalion commander are already waiting on me. They're already pissed. They give me a what for. Within the next couple of days, I'm back on extra duty and lost all my rank again and took some money from me. And the only reason, and they told me this, the only reason that they did not kick me out of the Army at that time was because my homeboy from Alabama had just had a newborn. Okay. His wife had given birth while we were in Jamaica, and they didn't want, it was his first time ever getting in trouble. They didn't want to like put him on the streets because, you know, they want to take care of him. He just had a baby. They gave him some leniency, right? Well, according to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, if we have the same infraction, we must have the same punishment. See, Kyle was working in that, bro.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah, you should have been out.
You know what I mean? I should have been kicked out of the Army in 2009, and I was not. I was put back on extra duty, survived extra duty. Listen, man, got all my rank back again. But now, during this time, I'm living an even deeper double life because now I'm addicted to spice. Now because I didn't want to, I just got caught with weed. I've already been in trouble with different things as far as drugs go, okay? I'm having to attend the Army Substance Abuse Program for a year. I have to take random and mandatory UAs every month. So I'm taking like 2 or 3 UAs a month. There's just no way to get away with smoking weed. And I don't want to keep other people's pee in my refrigerator anymore, which is, you know, what I was doing. Crazy to think that these things were happening. But when you're addicted, man, and when you're not saved and you just want to get by and survive life, you justify all kinds of different crazy, cruel, crude things, man. And one of the things I did was store other people's urine in my fridge next to, the sodas, I guess. I don't know. Well, I decided I wanted to start smoking this synthetic weed, and it started off okay. It smelled like weed. It got me high like weed. It smoked like weed. You prepared it the same way. You just took a cigarillo or a piece of joint paper and you rolled it up and you lit it and you smoked it. You inhaled it. You got high. It wasn't as potent. It was like regular weed that didn't show up in your urine. Well, federal agencies started getting wind that service members were doing this, so they started outlawing. They couldn't outlaw the sale of it because it was being sold as like potpourri. It was being sold as like aromatherapy. Right? And so it would even say on the bag, not for human consumption. And we were smoking it, right? Crazy. And they would, instead of like outlawing the sale of it, they would outlaw the certain ingredients that got you high on it. Well, what people did was then just changed the name or the type of chemical that was on this substance. So they kept banning it, they kept changing it, banning it, changing. Like every month they would ban a chemical and then a different chemical would be used on this synthetic drug. And it just got worse and worse and more expensive and harder to get. And now you're smoking. It's almost like you're on meth, because now it's to the point where soldiers are in the barracks and we're making it ourselves. When we realize that it's just crushed up herbs with chemicals sprayed on it, when we realized that, we were just making it. You go outside, get some leaves, wait for them to die, crunch them up, buy this chemical that you could get online anywhere, spray it or pour it on these crushed leaves, microwave it because you don't want to wait for it to dry, smoke it. Now you're completely zooted, right? And this is what all of my money went to. This is what my existence was about, bro. And then came these deceptions of, well, you perform better sexually when you're high, Jeff. Keep smoking. So now, not only am I thinking every time I have a sexual relationship, I have to be high. Every time I get high, I think I got to have sex. So it's just kind of going back and forth, which then increased my addiction to pornography, which increased my addiction to just chasing any sort of relationship I could, any woman that I could get, whether they were ones or tens, it didn't matter. Now my life is just spiraling out of control, right? And then, and that was in my private life. In my professional life, my Army career, I ended up getting all my rank back again for the third time, Kyle. Now I'm back on the mix. I'm back in the boards. I'm back to still killing it somehow on a PT score, even though I'm smoking every night, smoking cigarette, like a pack of cigarettes a day, still with like a 12-minute 2 mile, bro, just because I just would kill myself to have the status of I did better than you.
Yeah.
Right? And at some point I finally came on orders. I extended my enlistment for 2 more years in exchange to be stationed in Hawaii. So now here it comes again. Now by this time I'm divorced. I have no girlfriends. I have no kids, praise God, at the time. This will be my way. Remove me from, because I was hanging out with the people in the projects in Augusta, Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Those became my people. I had no family. My people weren't coming to visit me except my brother. My little brother would come see me sometimes. I had spent probably 3 years away from Lawton. I'm not even coming to see nobody. I'm isolated. I'm alienated myself. I have no relationship with God. And I really just made this reputation for myself to be just a weird, just individual altogether. This white guy from Lawton who thinks he's hard, who claims to be a gang member, who is also addicted to potpourri. Like, that just sounds crazy, So I, in my mind, like, you know what? I finally got another fresh start after 3 years in Georgia. I'm going to Hawaii. It's beautiful there. I don't know where to get anything. I have to establish new relationships. Let me go get back on track. Get to Hawaii. That was the plan. And then the moment I got there, I linked up with some guys from Grape Street Crip, Watts, California, and another guy from another Crip set in Crenshaw, California. So we're talking about like real gang members from the motherland have just joined the Army, and now we've all linked up at the same time at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, and I went right back to, like, we found where the spice was. We found where the weed was. We were drinking every night.
And that's where ICE I mean, that was like right around the time whenever ice was getting really popular on the island too.
Oh, so to this day, Hawaii, especially Oahu, Honolulu area, is the highest concentrated population of meth use in America.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I was. By the way, they don't tell you about that when you get to Hawaii, that,
that's not on the brochure.
To get to paradise, you got to go out from mid-island. You got to go to the beach. The closer you get to the center of the island, the more impoverished it really is, bro. It's kind of crazy. But anyways, I've done a lot of talking just to kind of paint the picture of how I went from 7th grade Goldberg shirts to now I'm almost 8 years in the Army and completely addicted to whatever will get me high, to the point where I'm drinking Scope, bro. Mouthwash.
Yeah.
If I don't have money to get something. I am soliciting prostitutes because if I'm high, I gotta have sex. I'm starting to become just curious with different ways to get more pleasure out of something, whether it meant different drugs or multiple partners at the same time or whatever I thought could take me to the next level of sin. Essentially, that's what it was. I came home, so we got deployed to Afghanistan. And while I was in Afghanistan, I was doing pretty good because I was removed from everybody and everything, and it was a little harder to get things you wanted to get high on, right? Doesn't mean we didn't get it. It just means it was a lot less accessible. They had a deal with us back then. I don't know how it is now, where you go on R&R, they'll pay for your plane ticket. If you want to go to a foreign country outside of the United States, you can go. They'll pay for your plane ticket, but you have to take care of your passport and stuff. You can't just travel with military orders because you're not ordered to go there, right? Well, my passport had expired since I was in Georgia and some other things, so I knew I couldn't go out of the country. So I said, well, I'm going to go anywhere. They said, we'll take you anywhere in the United States. Kyle, I got a ticket to Lawton, Oklahoma.
Out of everywhere you could have gone.
They were going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to go home and see my brother and my mama and all them. So really what I want to do is I wanted to go and smash some females that I knew that I could just call, because anytime I got home on a trip or leave or whatever in the Army, I know I had a 2 or 3 go-to list that if I called them, they would be a jump off for me, which just, in other words, is an old school term of saying, a hoe that I knew I could call that would give me what I wanted at the time. And so I chose Lawton because why not? And probably my 3rd day in Lawton, this was the night. This was end of June 2012. This was the night that LeBron and them won Game 5 of the NBA Finals against KD and Russell and James and them, who decided not to show up to play basketball, unfortunately.
They played real well in Game 1.
The Game 1 was great.
They forgot how to basketball after that.
So anyways, Game 5, we just knew, we'll be the first team to come back from 3-1 and win a finals, man. And ironically, that ended up being LeBron James some years later. But LeBron beat us, man, and I was probably head to toe in orange and blue. I'm back in Lawton, man. You got to represent. I've even got an orange bandana hanging from my pants. I'm super high, super drunk. Can't even tell you what I was. There was probably some Xanax involved as well. And I called, out of all people, bro, I called my first wife, who I've been divorced now from for three years or so. And because I knew that if I could get her on the phone, that we would have sex. And so I called her. She came and picked me up that same night. My head is totally gone and bad. And we got a hotel. We're on the way to a hotel. Well, guess what, man? She's in a stolen car, man, with bad tags and a busted taillight. It's pretty much a recipe that you will never want to be involved in. Why would you get in that vehicle? Well, because you wanted some coochie. That's why, And anyways, so it was just a recipe, a perfect storm, as I said before, of just crazy, man. So I get in the car. We're not in the car maybe 5 minutes before we get pulled over. And this time we get pulled over. I'm in the passenger side. I got a 9mm Ruger in my waistband. There's other illicit drugs in the car that were not mine, but they were in the car. And me, as a bold person, I said, hey, just give it to me. And I tried to hide it under the seat and kept my gun in my waistband because, they don't have any reason to search me. We'll be fine, whatever. And little did I know that there was a lot wrong with the car, right? Well, they pull us over. They notice me. Apparently, I'm showing some sort of nervousness. Okay. And
imagine that.
They come to my side, and it just so happened to be part of the gang unit. I found out a couple years later after doing my own work with the Lawton Police Department that they actually had a sting on the house that I was hanging out at and buying drugs from. That when they saw me walk out of the house, they followed us because they knew that I may have answers to what's going on in there, right? So anyways, we get pulled over. They come and get me out. They ask me blah blah blah, and I let them know I got a gun on me. They ended up pulling me out of the vehicle. Long story short, I was arrested on leave from combat. They ended up charging me with an unlawful possession and carrying of a firearm and possession of uncontrolled substances. This word gets back to my company commander in Kandahar, Afghanistan, like a day later. I get out of jail the next day or so on bail. I get a call from Kandahar from my company commander saying, "Get your butt on a plane. I've already got a ticket for you. You're flying out tonight." So R&R cut short. I get on a plane, fly through Kuwait, finally get to Kandahar for them to tell me, "Hey man, you've gotten in so much trouble over your career. This will be your third Article 15, a field grade Article 15 in 7+ years of service. We realized due to the Lawton Police Department police report that you're gang affiliated and you've got these aliases and blase blase," and it just all came crashing down in July of 2012, and they kicked me out, and I had nowhere to go. They took my security clearance, took everything from me, and sent me back to Schofield Barracks. So about a month later, I arrive in Schofield, and I already know they're kicking me out of the Army. What's left, right? And so I go even deeper into drug use, even deeper into soliciting the wrong things, and drinking to the point where I could finish a bottle of Jack by myself and not remember it, right? And not that it's a competition, but I mean, you never want to become that guy, right? And I spent about another 30 days or so, and then the end of September came, 2012, and I'm on a plane back to Oklahoma City because I know I don't want to go back to Lawton. I still have enemies there. There's nothing there for me. I'm not going to be able to work there. I got a job lined up in OKC through my boy Robert Fontaine. Shout out my boy Fontaine. Right. I got a job through him, and what I didn't tell Robert when I applied for the job is I got open cases with Comanche County that will render me not employable, right? And so I go to my interview for this job I got in the city, and they deny me and say, "No, we're not, because you got these open cases, and we don't even need to proceed with the interview, blah, blah, blah." And so now I'm living it with my mom. I'm 26 years old. I'm severely addicted to whatever would get me messed up. I'm sleeping on her couch. She's newly married, by the way, to a guy who don't like me, and I don't like him, and we don't get along, and we got into it really bad one morning to where I get kicked out because now I'm back to selling drugs and stuff. And I get into some beef altercations in Oklahoma City with rival gang members because I'm super duper Hoover. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm solidified. I got this reputation and I got all these things going on, and I'm not a wannabe anymore. You know, I'm actually one of these guys that people know about, at least in my city, for being involved with Hoovers, right? And I was so proud of that, Kyle. It was crazy to be homeless and addicted and have nothing. And that Afghanistan money, it runs out pretty quick when you smoke a lot, man. And it was gone within a month or so. We're talking probably $10,000, all spent on booze and pills and weed and women. And I would call myself a drug dealer, but I was really using more than I was selling, which is not a good indicator of good business. Yeah. And then on New Year's Eve, man, New Year's Eve 2012, just a few months later, I ended up back in Lawton. By the way, I'm living in my Mitsubishi Eclipse at this time. I ended up back in Lawton. A week before that was Christmas, where I had drunk myself sick and ended up like needing an IV because I was so messed up. And then the day after that was Christmas Eve. Then Christmas Day comes, and the engine in a old Ford Bronco that I was driving around locked up on me, so I have no vehicle now. The only thing I do have is this Mitsubishi Eclipse. The Mitsubishi Eclipse, in that same week, the brake line snapped as I'm going down I-44 in Norman, trying to get to a drug deal. and I'm speaking in circles now, but when that happened to the Mitsubishi Eclipse vehicle that I was driving, right? It was my brother's car. He let me use it. I was driving it, and the brake line snapped, and I was able to maneuver it off the highway to an exit, and it came to a complete stop in front of a church. Right in front of a church. And I remember in that moment thinking, man, God is really trying to get a hold of my heart. But I remember thinking, man, you know what? I'm still 26, man. I got too much life to live. I'm not done having fun yet. Like, I don't want to be one of them hypocrites at church. You know, I knew in my heart if I go to church, I was going to do it 100% full speed. I'm not ready to do that because I don't want to give up these things because they make me feel better and I don't want to, right? And so the signs were there, right? That you don't realize till after the fact. But so within the same week, pretty much, I'm pretty sure I had alcohol poisoning. Pretty sure. I didn't go to to find that out. Brake line snaps in a vehicle that stops in front of a church. Going through the toll, trying to get back to Lawton in a Ford Bronco, the engine locks up because I hadn't had an oil change on. I'm just going from vehicle to vehicle that people let me use, and I don't own any of it. And every time it's in my possession, it messes up. To the point where I had to push this Ford Bronco through the toll booth. I still had to pay the toll and then push it through and then park it up there. And I don't even know where this vehicle's at to this day. And sit there at the end of December waiting on someone to come get me from Lawton. So they came and got me from Lawton, took me back to Lawton. I'm hanging out. New Year's Eve comes. Okay, so all this is within the same 10 days. Mind you, by the way, I'm still unemployed really and nothing to show for it except maybe a sack of weed. And I go and get my brother. I had another car that he was using, right? And he used to work at the news station on the east side, KSWL. And he said, as long as you get back, I was going around town making deals, hustling near and that, getting high, doing whatever it did all day. And then it came time to go pick him up from work. As long as you come get me from work, I'm fine. So I go out to pick him up. On the way back from picking him up from work, I decide I'm going to go to Rogers Lane, back to the drug dealer so I can get some more drugs. And I go about 98 miles an hour right past the highway patrol. He pulls me over. And this guy's a rookie, so he's not with the warnings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He makes me get out the vehicle. He sits me down in the passenger seat of his patrol car. He writes me a speeding ticket. And I was pretty much scot-free. I get out the vehicle and I say something slanderous and stupid and cuss-worthy probably at him. And he goes, "Oh, wait, come back. I said, I was just going to let you slide because it's New Year's Eve and I'm new to the force and this and that. But you've just talked yourself into a sobriety test, which I failed. And got charged with DWI, with still an open case in the county. And for whatever reason, all these different things started to replay in my mind. So I get in the back of the highway patrol car. I'm on my way to Comanche County Memorial Hospital to get my blood drawn. Because he told me if you don't get your blood drawn, you will pretty much hand over your driver's license for a year. It'll be automatically suspended until we go through whatever. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. And I knew that I was high on drugs, not alcohol that day. So I said, they're not going to find alcohol in my system, but I wasn't thinking. They definitely were going to find other substances in my blood. So anyway, I get in the back of the car and I remember driving in the back of the car and I remember instantly, Kyle, becoming sober, right? I remember going from all these range of emotions, okay, I'm afraid because now I'm going back to jail. What's next? To I'm sweating because now it's hot and I'm uncomfortable. These handcuffs are on me again. To I feel like I'm going to throw up because I'm so inebriated. And then ultimately, all of a sudden, all emotions stopped and I was still and sober, bro. And I will never forget almost an audible voice. I heard, "Stop playing around, Jeff." Right? And I'm like, I think it's the cop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Sir, what'd you say?" And he goes, "I didn't say anything. You're tripping." Right? So I'm like, maybe he's right. I did consume a lot of drugs today. Maybe I'm just tripping. And I remember feeling like I'm not high though. How am I not high right now? And I heard it again. "Stop playing, Jeff. Make a decision. This or die." Like it was not even joking. I felt like someone was in the car talking to me, bro. And I didn't know. I now know. The Holy Spirit was visiting me, bro. In the flesh was like, "Jeff, stop playing. You're gonna die, and I don't want you to die. There's something cool you could be doing." And I remember thinking, holding tears back in the back of that cop car, like, this is the moment it has to change. Like, this is the moment where all of this garbage has to stop. This has gotten me nowhere. This gang affiliation didn't pay off for that long. Drug sales are really just feeding my addiction. I don't have anything to show for it. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have a job and everything. What's the common denominator? I've always been good at math, Kyle. What's the common denominator here? And the common denominator was me. The common denominator is not them or they or her or him. The common denominator was Jeff Elbert. And Jeff, you got to get it together. So I remember praying, God, I've heard of you. I thought I knew you, but I need you. If you show up, like, I just need to know if you're real. If you show up, if you prove that this is worth it to me, I will live for you. I will quit everything. I need your help out of this one, though. Like, this was the first time I really prayed in my life. Mind you, I was challenging God, which you shouldn't do, but I did. And God has so much grace that he heard what I was really trying to say. Like, he didn't take it personal. You know what I'm saying? And I said, if you show up in such a way where there's proof, because I want to believe, but just show it to me. And if you show it to me, God, I will live my life for you. In Jesus' name, amen. That's how I taught you how to pray. So that's what you prayed. I get to Comanche County Detention Center, taking my fingerprints. They're giving me my nice, cool-looking orange suit. Taking my shots, face to the left, face to the right, face forward. I know the drill by now. And it's probably my third arrest in about a year and a half. I had got arrested in Georgia before I left to go to Hawaii on a disorderly conduct drunken charge. It's New Year's Eve. I'm versed enough in the detention system to know that Judge ain't gonna be at work tomorrow. Tomorrow is January 1st. Judge not coming. Plus, I think it was the weekend or something. And I remember asking the correctional officer there at the desk before she put me in a drunk tank, and I said, hey, you got anything to read? She was like, yeah, I got this book. Take the book from her, put it under my arm, put my hands behind my back, and get ready to be escorted to my cell. Get to my cell. It's a drunk tank because on New Year's Eve, they've got a lot of those situations. And because, Comanche County Detention Center takes care of the whole county. So it's not just Lawton, it's surrounding areas as well. And it's just, you wouldn't think there'd be that many people in a drunk tank area, but it was a lot of different cells full of DUIs and stuff. And they put me into this cell with nonviolent offenders. Everybody's just drunk, right? And I'm the 7th person to walk into this cell. And I only know that because I remember counting. And I remember seeing like 3 people on the floor, laying on the floor with a mat and a blanket, drunk in sleep. I remember seeing 2 bunk beds, one on this side and one on this side, and 4 beds in 2 bunk beds, right? You can picture it. And one of them wide open. And I remember thinking, I'll never forget it. I remember thinking, why in the world
are they on the floor?
Yeah. Let alone the bottom bunk is, according to jail rules, most of the time the preferred bunk. So the one who wants to decide that's his bunk, if he wants it bad enough, he'll fight you for it, right? Because he wants to sleep there. So and me knowing this etiquette, right, of jail etiquette, which was crazy to say, I know that this is a weird situation to have 6 other men in this cell. 3 people on the floor and 1 open bunk that's on the bottom was weird. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'll take it. And on the bunk was not only an extra blanket that somebody, I guess, had left. You don't get an extra blanket unless you trade for it or beg for it. Was a Bible. And I sat down on this bunk, and I remember looking at that Bible and thinking, did God hear me praying? I was praying. Is this him? Nah, there's no way. There's no way. I want to believe it, but the supernatural can't exist. This is weird. This is just a circumstance. This is a coincidence, right? Then, right after thinking that and justifying in my mind, and really at the time fighting with who I think Satan was there with me that day, bro. I really do. Or at least one of his demons, bro, was in my ear trying to convince me this was not God, right? But everything kept proving itself to be God. I pulled a book out, and it's A Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. And I don't know what this is. But on the title underneath it, the subtitle says, what on earth am I here for? And I remember part of my prayer in the highway patrol car on the way here was, I know I'm meant to do something, but I don't know what it is. Show up and show me who you are, and I will do it. Just I need to hear from. I need to know this is real because I don't want to waste my time. Can you imagine a prayer like that to God?
Yeah.
But he heard it. I opened the first page, and on before it even gets to like in loving memory of and the preface of the book, it has this page, and it has a scripture with it, Ephesians 1:11 and 12, and it has like a note to the reader, and it says, "It is not an accident you're holding this book. This moment was planned and predestined before the foundation of the earth. So you're holding this book is not by accident." Now, my mind is blown because Kyle, I had just spent an intimate time for the first time in my life with God, asking him to show up, challenging his existence, and he showed up. And to me, this was like, wait a second. This is all real. Everything I learned as a kid about God and Jesus, it could be true. What have I been doing? And I began to read this book, and it began to institute itself in Scripture. And I remember Ephesians 1:11 talking about how I was chosen to do something and how I may not be the first in Christ, but I could still belong to him, right? And how he, before I was ever born, had something designed for me to do. Nothing had made more sense in my life than that in that moment. And I remember 3 days in county, got out, and I had this like taste in my mouth that was like, wait, this is what air tastes like? Oxygen tastes like this? I don't remember taking a breath without a cigarette. I don't remember having clothes on that didn't smell like something. Like this, and I remember drinking some orange juice. Like, this is what orange juice tastes like? I remember putting in Kendrick Lamar in the radio in the $600 beater that I had purchased. And the lyrics and the music didn't sound right. I was like, what is this? And I remember thinking, God reminded me in that moment, remember when you were in that cop car and you said to show up, and if I did, you would live for me? Well, I showed up. Your turn. It's like, wow. Well, let me do my part then. If I'm going to do it, let's go full speed. Let's go 100%. There's nothing else to do. I've done it. I've done everything else. I've lived life as a criminal. I'm homeless now. I know what it is to be an alcoholic and a drug addict. I know what it is to be addicted to porn and gambling. I know what it is to not have anybody. I'm at rock bottom. What do I have to lose than to live 100% for Jesus Christ? So I went to Victory, a church campus in Bethany, Oklahoma. And my idea was, this is such a big church. I could sneak in.
Sneak out.
Say my prayer, get right with Jesus, and sneak out.
Yeah.
I go in, I got a beard down to here. Right? I still got a little bit of my walk. You know what I'm saying? I walk in, I get to the back pew. I sit down. This joker, this worship pastor, he done lost his mind. He goes, we're going to do something different today.
Yeah.
We're going to have invitation first. I'm like, wait a second. No. Look, I was raised in Southern Baptist Church.
Yeah.
In Southern Baptist Church. Say hi.
Yeah.
Sing some songs. Throw in a welcome, some more songs. Pray. Preach the sermon. Sermon's done. Come to the altar. Handle your business. Have offering. Sing a song. Go home.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this already, bro? This is not what I planned. No, there's somebody here today. They don't even have to hear the word yet. They came because they know who Jesus is calling them to be. So let's do invitation right now. If I'm talking to you, come forward. I don't move. I'm stuck. I'm like. Then I see like 50 people. And mind you, this is like 2,000 in attendance, okay? It's a big church. It looks like they took over a shopping center and turned it into a church or something like that. Remember, I came to that size church because I was trying to sneak in, sneak out. I see them. I suddenly have this urge of like, you know what? That's why I came. He's not lying. I came because in my mind, you could only get saved if you went to church, right? So I walk down the altar. There's 50 of us at the altar. The beginning of church, I'm already crying.
Yeah.
Worship pastor leans over in this group of 50 and looks at me and says, hey man, today's the day. So now I'm like, I'm bugging out. Like I'm bawling, snot in the beard, full on like, I am a mess, God, come fix me. And they take me to a room, they explain salvation. I already kind of had the training, so I knew what was going on, but it never made more sense, bro, until that moment. And I walk out of there, and I get back in the car, and I remember just feeling this sense of newness. And everything that I described when I got out of jail, like how things tasted different and things sounded different, was like accelerated, if that makes sense. Like, not only could I not listen to that music, I had thrown it out the window of my car on I-44. You're welcome to whoever picked up that album, right? Having an urge to smoke a cigarette and thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. And then feeling good about not smoking and throwing those away. The day after I got saved, I thought to myself, okay, I fixed all these things about me, but I still have this sexual addiction that's driven my life, right? This need to be accepted by not only people, but by a woman especially, right? I need this love. I went and called one of my girlfriends that I had, a relationship with for about 10 years, and we had sex. And for the first time ever, I'm saved having sex. I've never had sex saved before. And it felt different. Like it was not the same. And I remember God saying again, remember what you told me. You told me that if I show up, because I didn't have to show up, Jeff, and I did, because I love you. You told me that if I did that, you would live for me. Do you think that having sex with this woman right now, who's not your wife, is living for me? This is happening as I'm having sex with her. And I'm like, God, get out of my head. Like, what are we doing here? Right? Moments upon that happen, I take her home, I come back, I repent. I write a letter to God, put it in a sealed envelope that's still in my possession to this day. And it says, Dear God, I'm sorry. I don't want to displease you ever again. Help me not to have sex with anyone ever again. I promise I will not have sex with anyone unless she is my wife and we are married. It won't be oral or otherwise. I was deeply specific in this letter. Signed, yours truly, Jeff Elbert, right? Like, what are we doing? And I folded it up, put it in an envelope, sealed it. And that was, I don't know what led me to do that, but that was like the foundation of not having sex every time I was getting ready to do it or thought about doing it, or even when I was dating my current wife before we got engaged and, there were opportunities to do certain things, I remembered these things like, you promised God, dude, don't do that. And I bring up all of that part of the story to say that there was definitely a difference. Like, my brain changed. Not only because now I'm newly sober and don't have the taste for it whatsoever, but I have this ambition to do what God tells me to do. And I wasn't thinking about anything else. A week later, I'm getting ready to go back to Victory Church. I'm still living in Oklahoma City. I finally have an apartment now. All this is happening really fast. January 2013. I went from living in a car to being in jail to getting out of jail to not having anywhere to go to having an apartment and a car, a whole different car. Still don't have a job or nothing, praying about where I'm supposed to work. And I remember getting on Facebook, getting ready for church, man. It was a week after I've been a Christian for 6+ days, and I'm ready to go back to church. First time in church as a grown man. I'm loving this Jesus thing. I'm on Facebook. And I'm scrolling on Facebook, and I see that another young man in a blood gang in Lawton was shot and killed at a nightclub. And I remember seeing my homies and their homies all on Facebook like, heaven gained another angel. Oh, we'll see you again. Another one got his wings. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, remember my brain's different now, right?
Right.
And I remember thinking like, I don't think so. I don't know if that's true. I'm pretty sure if I had died before last week, I'd be in hell. And I don't want to condemn people that I don't know that well to hell because I don't know what their salvation experience is and all that. But based on the fruit on that tree, there's no fruit at all. The tree is bare, and I don't know. And really what got to me more than the, RIP, right? And I don't mean to speak ill on the dead at all, or nothing like that. My passion became more directed toward those left behind. Right? He's dead, he's gone. I hope he's in heaven, right? But I can't be concerned with him. He's gone now. My concern now is the kids you left behind, the baby mothers you left behind, the homies you left behind, the neighborhood, the street you left behind, those who knew you who are now confused to say that we'll see you again in heaven. Somebody who speaks their language has to tell them that's not right. Then a calling came upon my life in that moment. And I thought, Kyle, I was going to be a Christian rapper and poet. And I got into the Lawton scene, the Lawton gospel hip hop poetry slam scene. Got in there, had a whole poem I was going to recite about how Jesus changed my life. And I get in there and God completely, this is when I knew I had the fulfillment of the Holy Spirit in me, right? When everything I planned to say was not spoken at all. And God just used me in McMahon Auditorium at a Stop the Violence gang rally that we had, or gang awareness rally that we had, where I began to speak and people were listening. And then it became apparent, oh no, it's not rap and poetry, it's speaking.
Yeah, it's preaching.
So then I'm like, okay, well, while I'm there, I get linked up with a bunch of different pastors in the community, and one of them invites me to his church. I start going to his church, and at some point, I ended up he helps me get a job at Lawton Constitution where I'm delivering papers in bulk to the different paper boys around the area, whether it's in Lawton or in the country or wherever. And I couldn't keep going from Oklahoma City back down to Lawton every night because it just wasn't working. And so, he put up some money for me to get an apartment and brought me on staff at his church. One thing led to another. I'm getting ordained and licensed in the ministry. I became the youth pastor there. I meet my wife. Everything good starts to happen. And, that was I feel like a 2-hour explanation about how we get to where we are now. I remember going from thinking I was going to be a Christian rap artist, which sounds crazy, to just a public speaker, motivational speaker, to now I'm a youth pastor, to a loophole. I'm made aware of a loophole in my GI Bill. Remember, they kicked me out of the Army with a less than honorable discharge, which means I lose my GI Montgomery Bill qualifications, right? My benefit. But I re-enlisted after 2 years. And when you re-enlist, they discharge you honorably and then enlist you again, right? Which, they call it re-enlistment. But I didn't realize I have on record, even though it was only 2 years of service, an honorable term. So I was able to use that. I still had access to 80% of my GI Bill, including 80% of the housing allowance for going to school. So I still owed 20% of my tuition. Well, by that time, I was already a year into ministry, and part of my salary to be the youth pastor there was I lived on a property that our church owned and maintained it. It was like a transitional homeless program where we helped people off the streets and get them back into society through the gospel, right? And because I was the property manager, I got to live on this campus for free. So this BAH, this housing allowance I got from the Veterans Affairs, I didn't need it for rent.
Right.
So that covered the other 20% that I didn't have for tuition. So I still went to school for free. I go to school. I think, you know what? I'm going to get into criminal justice because I want to get in the juvenile detention program. And I want to help these young men, these young girls who are in gangs. And I want to help them see who Jesus is and that they have so much more to their life. So they don't figure it out in their 20s. They can figure it out in their teens. So that was the mission. That was the plan. I go and take my placement exam, and I pass all my placement because it's 10 years after high school, so your ACT doesn't count anymore. So you got to take placement exams to get into Cameron or wherever school you're going to. And math being my best subject in school, the only class I never skipped, my favorite thing in school was math, bro. I've always been really good at it. It was my favorite thing to do. I placed so low on my math placement exam that I had to go to remedial class. And where we come from, remedial means retarded.
Yeah, means you're not.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Not playing with the full deck.
You're stupid. And I knew I know I'm not stupid. In fact, I knew that I was intelligent. And I battled with if I was even going to go to school or not. And I was like, well, let's just go see how it goes. So I went to our remediation algebra class, and I was struggling because I had lost it. In math, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? It's like free throws. If you don't, well, my free throws I miss anyways, but if you're a basketball player and you stop practicing free throws, chances are when you come to the line in a game time situation, you're going to miss them, right? I didn't understand what was going on, so I linked up with a free resource in the basement of Cameron University, Howell Hall, and that was a math tutoring lab, right? And I remember going in there and getting some help and just reading through textbooks, and then all of a sudden it clicked for me. It's like, wait, I know what I'm doing. Start figuring it all out. Then I start bringing my classmates in this class with me to the tutoring lab. There's so many people in there that I'm bringing from my class. Pretty much my whole class is following me down here because I'm in class, like, teaching them. It's like, I mean, why are you in this class, Jeff? Like, you should not be in this class. And I was like, well, I just didn't do well on my test, and I had to get back accustomed to what was going on, but now I got it. My brain's back on track. And so they would follow me to the not the meth lab.
Not the meth lab, different lab.
The math lab.
Yeah.
From meth lab to math lab should be a book I write or something.
There you go.
But I hate writing. So anyways, I know you get like prestigious authors and stuff, bro. I'm just not one of them guys. Okay. I brought them down one day and there were no tutors available. And so I just took over a table of like 8 people and start tutoring them through this remediation college algebra class. And one of them looks up and says, hey man, I've never understood this in my whole life. You should teach math, bro. And I was like, nah, man, I'm getting in the criminal, justice system. My major is such and such, da, 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 da. And he was like, man, I really think you should change your major because what I'm seeing right now is like, it never has been more clear to me what we're doing right now in this class. And I'm only about to pass this class with a good grade because of you explaining to me, right? And I said, well, honestly, the reason I want to go criminal justice is because blah, 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 blah. And he goes, well, if you taught, you could get them before they go to juvie, bro. And I said, you know what? That's a great idea. And so the next day I went and changed my major to math education, man. And graduated with honors because I finally was comfortable with who God made me. And realized that it's okay to be smart. Kids, it's okay to be smart. It's okay not to be gangster. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Figure it out. Parents, it's okay to tell your kids no. I'm getting into the part of the show where I tell them what they should be doing.
Don't worry, I do it all the time. Well, let me
that whole time, get married, end up having a child, and all that cool stuff.
Well, I want to pause you just a second because
sorry, man, I've been kind of going.
No. The reason why I let that go, I say let that go. You're your own man. You can talk whenever you want to talk. It's because, yes, I do get some prestigious people that come on the show. I got people trying to sell books, trying to sell tickets to movies. I got all kinds of things. But there's something unique that happens when you know somebody is pouring their heart out and they got nothing to sell. So a guy that sat there in that chair, Brad Glenn, when he was telling his story of drug addiction and how God found him, how he put a 6-shooter to his head, pulled the trigger 8 times and didn't die, right? But whenever the cop goes to hand that same revolver over to a buddy, it goes off in his hand and shoots around out into the woods. So it's a non-functioning, revolver when he's trying to kill himself, but it functions when it's being handed to somebody, right?
I feel like God let the gun go off in that moment, particularly so that you could be talking about this right now, so that guy, Brad, you said, would never forget that moment and know that the only reason those things happen is because God is involved directly, bro.
Well, certainly. And then the other part of that is a lot of times people are not giving you the true story because the true story is too ugly. Yeah. It's too gross. Because this is how you could explain where you are now. Because we're going to get into teaching the stuff you're doing a lot and high and all that as we wind to a close. But some people say, man, yeah, had a little bit of a rough upbringing, made some bad decisions as a kid, but I got on the straight and narrow and now things are good. And so, I'm a pretty creative dude and, I have a pretty healthy imagination. So I can maybe put some stories in there and I can maybe, okay, you grew up here, you grew up there, and I might be able to kind of surmise what I think that means. But as you're weaving through what you're describing, going, from gangs to God, as you're weaving through all of that, there's something that's very clear to me, which is that there are parts of your testimony, parts of your story that are going to hit different people in my audience differently. Because some people will be able to align with your father and mother wound. Not that they were absent, but that they weren't giving you what it was that you needed, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be people that get along with this, I don't want to be one of the smart kids, I want to be one of the cool kids. There's going to be people in my audience that have been in gangs or are currently in gangs. There's going to be people in my audience that got chance after chance after chance, and then they were just an F up, right? Mm-hmm. And they just, that's who they became. They made an agreement with a lie, which is that they have no purpose and no value, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to have people that could have done some things in the military, but, zigged when they should have zagged. There's so many opportunities for somebody to see something in your story that resembles something in their own life. And so there are people today, hopefully, Lord willing, there are people today that realize, hey, there is a path that I'm on, but it's not a path that I have to stay on, right? Yeah. Because we have autonomy and we have the ability to choose. Because as C.S. Lewis said, that a world full of automatons is not a world worth creating, because an automaton cannot love. An automaton cannot choose to love. An automaton cannot sacrifice, right? Mm-hmm. Which those are all things that are indicative and fruit of the tree of a Christian life where you've given yourself over to the gospel, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so you get all the way around to this moment. Yeah. You took the circuitous route, right? You could have went all the way through, got a wrestling scholarship, become a math teacher and, get your first contract as a 22, 23-year-old ready to go. That's just not the way that it worked out. And so there's a couple things you can do. You can lament the time wasted, or you can look at it as powder for tomorrow's battle. Because here's the difference. Brad Glenn, sitting in that chair, the guy who took, I don't know what the guy took, meth or coke or whatever, crack, he took enough to kill multiple people, and he just so happens to shoot up in Brad Glenn's parking lot. And he just waltzes into Brad Glenn's boot shop. He doesn't know Brad. He also doesn't know Brad used to use. So when Brad pulls up his cowboy shirt and shows a bunch of track marks on his arm, so can he talk to that guy in a different way than I could? Well, sure, because we can both help him. Yeah. We can both give him a ride. We can both pay some of his bills. We can both get him on the straight and narrow. But I can't say, I know what you're going through. Yeah. And I know that there's hope on the other side. Right?
And I praise God for all the experiences because of that reason, bro. I get to lead a ministry now where you've got different types of people all struggling with something different that I struggle with a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
I now know the reason that God allowed that to happen while he was waiting on me to, choose him finally. Was so that now I can minister to each and every type of person that identifies with something that I've done. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the other thing, Jeff. Even as you're saying that, some people think they are consumed by whatever flavor of sin they've chosen.
Yeah.
Whether that's chemical, liquid, women, influence, power, whatever the thing is. When you're consumed, you no longer exist. Mm-hmm. Right?
Okay.
I consume a sandwich. It goes through my system, and the sandwich is gone, right? Guys, you're not consumed by these things. You're enslaved to them.
Yeah, you're mastered by it.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, the word is doulos in the New Testament. That's the Greek word used. If you're a doulos for Christ, that's going back to Romans 1, you're a slave for Christ. Mm-hmm. So you're allowing yourself to be enslaved by lust, by the acquisition of money, by violence, by power of any number of means, by your anger, by your legitimate chemical or liquid addictions, whatever those things are, but you get a choice in the matter, right? And that's the thing, is what you're offering people is you're offering them a choice. You're offering them a choice to something differently.
Choose different, man.
Because there's a menu of options for most of these people. But to bring this full circle, you graduate from Cameron.
Yep.
Right. So that's
Go Aggies.
Yeah, the university there in Lawton, Oklahoma, where we all grew up. But even now, you were given chance to reset, chance to reset, chance to reset, chance to be a new Jeff, chance to be a new creation. Half a dozen times throughout your young adult life and your teenage years.
Yeah.
There's still a decision to be made. Because now you can just be a drug addict with a degree.
Yeah.
Right? You can be a derelict.
I could decide on my way home tonight that I just want to go to Fluffy's Discount Liquor. Right? I could make that decision to, especially now, when I was smoking all the weed, man, it wasn't a dispensary on every half block.
Right. You had to work for it.
I could still go do that. I could still, we have more access to porn than we ever had. I could still go watch porn. I could still make a decision that I'm going to cheat on my wife. I could still decide that I'm going to go get the new J's because I love Jordans, right? I could go get the new J's and not pay a bill, right? I could, there's times still to this day, Kyle, where I walk out of Walmart or wherever and there's someone smoking a cigarette outside and I can smell it. Most of the time it's repulsive just because I haven't done it in a long time. But there are instances where I smell a cigarette and I'm like, ooh, I want one. I could still go to that person. There's nothing stopping me. God sure is not going to stop me from choosing to do sin, right? But the Bible does say that he never allows us to be tempted beyond what we can bear. And people take that out of context to say God will never place us in a situation that's too hard for us, or God won't allow anything to happen to us that's too hard. That's heresy. That's not.
Yeah, read Psalm 23. You're in the valley of shadow of death.
Yeah.
It's not, the point is not that you get delivered from its point, that's God's there with you.
But it does say, when I'm tempted, he provides a way out. What I have to do, according to Peter, is submit to God, resist the devil. Scripture says he will flee. He will run away. Doesn't mean he won't come back and visit every often and send people to you to tempt you or whatever. And a lot of times we put ourselves in situations to be tempted a little more easily because, I'm sober almost 13 years. I'm not going to the bar. I'm a teetotaler, right? I don't condemn either one way or another, but I can't drink, right? If I go have a glass of wine, I'm probably going to relapse sevenfold, and I don't want to. So I don't put myself in that situation. To your point, I absolutely have a choice, but I hope to choose Jesus, my wife, and my daughter 100% of the time. I hope that's when I have chosen God over myself, I have won every time. Every time I've chosen myself over God, I have lost.
Literally today. So this is coming out, a while later. I was talking to a group of guys that I'm coaching through the Dominion program. The first pillar of a Dominion man is God over self. That does not mean self is not important. It means it is subservient to the importance of God. And when you focus on you and the accomplishments you need to make and the boxes you need to check, and you're not pursuing God, you always end up empty. And I think about that story of Deion Sanders when the Cowboys, the last time they were relevant, like 30 years ago.
Come on, man.
I know. But Deion Sanders is on the team. They win the Super Bowl. He's the best athlete on the best football team on the planet. And then they drink the champagne. They hoist the Lombardi trophy. There's confetti everywhere. They've got their Super Bowl hat. They got their shirt. He gets back to the hotel. He's alone. And he has nothing.
Nothing.
He realizes, I've worked my entire life to get to this exact moment, and I'm empty. And according, at least to Deion, that's whenever he turned his life over to God. And, we can judge fruit and do all that all day long. But I mean, that's the moment where he realized this is vapid. This is chasing after the wind. This is trying to grab a fistful of water. And that's what our entire life is if we're not tethered to the reality of God. But for you, Jeff, you have this whole path, right? where wrestling's a part of it.
Yeah.
Math is a part of it.
It's crazy.
But you allow wrestling and math to go to the background.
Yeah.
Whereas pursuit of power, dominance, and belonging went to the foreground. And it led to a life of seeking after chemical pleasure, seeking after physical pleasure, and seeking after a way to belong that is beyond what is afforded to you naturally, right?
Correct.
And here you are today.
Mm-hmm.
You're a teacher at Lawton High School, which I'm still pretty pissed off about. Like,
Sorry,
how dare you go to the middle part of town?
I have a story for that,
why?
too.
Why? I don't even want to hear it. I'm still mad about it, okay? But you go to Lawton High. You're a teacher.
Hanta yo.
And you Hanta yo mama. I remember the shirt. I remember the shirt from senior year. Not only are you a teacher there, you're the wrestling coach.
Yeah.
The guy that blew his opportunity at regionals.
Crazy.
Right? Which could have changed the trajectory of your entire life.
Yeah.
And now here you are.
Might not be sitting here with you, man. You never know.
Certainly not. Certainly not. You got kids showing up to your classroom wearing dress shirts and ties. You got chess clubs. You got young men that would have otherwise followed the family line of getting clicked up that are instead trying to make sure that they're in as good a place as possible before district tournaments in high school for wrestling.
Yeah.
That they can get an A in your class.
Yeah. And it's okay to be smart. And it's okay to want to be smart. And it's okay to achieve things academically. And it's okay to be nice. And it's okay to be a nerd. It's okay to like Legos. It's okay to be a video gamer. It's okay if you never play sports. It's okay if you do play sports. It's okay, but these things can't be the root of your life. And there's still some kids that come into contact with us, whether it's Gentlemen of Lawton High or the chess club or the wrestling team or the church or whatever, that still choose to do what Jeff Elbert did, and that's not know Jesus, right? You still run into those kids, but every once in a while you get that one kid who comes through and not only professes faith in Christ, but even asks you to baptize him. And those moments are the reason you make a choice to live this type of life, is to hear someone, if it's just one person, come and say, I know Jesus because of you. Man, that's dope. That's why else live, why else exist, other than given an opportunity to share with a wrestler or a gentleman of Lawton High or a lady of Lawton High or someone who just put me in checkmate or somebody who's failing my class or someone who just forgot to turn in a homework assignment or someone who's acing the test, or everyone, right? To be able for them to come in and say, hey, you know what? You're my favorite teacher because you want to be like Jesus. You don't get to hear that all the time.
No.
But when you hear that, that gives you the fool to go another round, man.
Well, here's the other thing. So I was helping this group of guys, or this group of people years ago, helping them put their life into chapters. Okay? And I think I'm in my mid-20s at this point. And people were having a lot of trouble kind of conceptualizing that. But basically it's like, okay, your life is 5 chapters. But when you're 22 years old, the chapters can be early life, elementary school, middle school, high school, college. Those are your 5 chapters. But if you're 60, that's chapter 1, right? And it's just called early life or school life or something like that.
That's true.
And so as your life goes and develops, as you continue investing in these young men and these young women in Lawton through the Great 580, through all the different groups you've talked about, through teaching, through coaching, through ministering to people, through preaching, through all the things, extrapolate that out another 20 years, Jeff. Let's round it up. Another 21 years. You're 60 years old. What are your chapters? Right? So that first chapter can be called early life.
Yeah.
Chapter 2 could just be called knucklehead.
Yeah.
And from gang affiliation to God finding you, it's just a chapter. And then it's early identity in Christ.
Yeah.
Maturing identity in Christ. And then sage identity in Christ. And so here you are, 60 years old. You're on the back 9 of your life, as it were, right? There's not a whole lot of runway in front of you, but you got a lot of runway behind you, and use the runway behind you to make sure you are transferring that wisdom in the time that you've got left allotted here on this planet, right? But let's rewind back to before you end up in the back of that highway patrolman's car.
Yeah.
What are your chapters, right? You're not even writing a book at that point.
No.
You're existing from moment to moment, from high to high, from experience to experience. And now you have the ability and the capability and are doing this where you're telling kids, like, if you're looking for an example of how not to be, you're not pointing them to America's Most Wanted or Cops or whatever was popular when we were kids or whatever that thing is. Or remember that kid over there that got suspended for who's it's, what's it's, and whatnot, right? No, you're like, me, my life.
That's the idea.
You give them this podcast. You give them a recording of you delivering your testimony and things like that, and be like, you don't have to choose that road right now. I went down the bumpy path. You don't have to go down that road. You don't have to have a cool testimony. Because like I've told guys before that are like, I grew up in the church, and my dad's a pastor, and so I just kind of got saved when I was like 7 at VBS or whatever the thing is. So I just, I'm in my 50s now, and I just don't have a cool testimony. It's like, well, hey, do you want your grandkids to have a cool testimony or a boring one? Because I'll tell you right now, I want James and Eli, aside from being the most toxically masculine young men that you ever meet in your entire life, I want them to have really, really boring testimonies.
And that's something, not to cut you off, but that's something that, especially when I get a chance to minister in front of teenagers, is or young adults, is I would rather your story be, I got saved at 15 and I ain't looked back. I would rather that be your testimony. God would much rather that be your life, because then you get to know him a little longer. He can use you longer. And it doesn't mean that he's be disappointed necessarily in how you got there, but I do know that sometimes people can hear a story, the one I just told, and glamorize it and think that it's worth living. I've had a kid tell me one time, well, you lived your life to a certain extent. Why won't you just let me live mine? Because he was just getting out of high school, and I was trying to tell him then, hey, man, calm down. You're headed down the wrong path. And he straight up told me, I tried the church thing. It's not for me. I mean, look at you, Jeff. You didn't figure it out till you were almost 30 and blah, 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 blah. And at the time, I didn't know what else to say to him, you know what I mean? And because he was kind of right. At least that's what I thought in my mind. And all I could say was like, all right, man, well, we'll see how it goes, And then now he's like doing life in prison right now for murder. And he was just around the murder, but because they were committing a felonious act and it resulted in someone's death, he got charged with the homicide as well. And so, neither here nor there, the idea there is, even if you're 40 years old listening to this testimony, you don't have to wait until rock bottom to decide that God exists. You also don't have to experience for yourself him proving himself to you. Hopefully you can hear someone else say, hey, he showed up in a real way in my life, and you will take that for granted. And I know that doesn't happen all the time, especially for guys like me who need proof and evidence, stuff like that. But just to add to what you were saying, bro, not to get too long-winded, but just to say, your story is so much more, to me, it's cooler if you didn't have all these experiences. If you could hear about someone else's experience and say, hey, I don't want to become like that. Let me get in touch with Jesus now at 13. That would be fire to me. Like, that would be so much more cooler to me, bro.
Well, what I can say is, there's a lot of issues with social media, especially if you get addicted to it, especially if you start playing the comparison game, because you're looking at someone's highlight reel on Instagram, like their best vacations and their best outfits and their best new this and new that. So there are certainly some drawbacks to it, but one of the benefits of it is I've been able to keep up with you over this last decade or so. And dude, you are flat out an inspiration to me, because I know where you came from and I know where you are now. And it's an example that I can point to of the transforming power of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay? Because we live in an era of cheap grace. We live in an era of come to church, there's secular music playing in the lobby, you get your coffee and your cookies, and you go inside, and the smoke machines start and all the lights, and you get to hear this music, and the musicianship is fantastic. And then this good-looking guy gets up there and he gives you that TED Talk, that inspirational speech. Then he throws in a few Bible verses so the church can keep a tax-exempt status. And then they start whipping up the piano towards the end of the sermon, and they get everybody in this, this emotional frenzy, and they get you to raise your hand, and you're crying, and it's this big emotional thing. And they say, hey, make sure you get a welcome packet on the way out, and we'll see you next week. And then you look around,
you
and
just
like,
described like 90% of the American church, bro.
Right? Yeah. And so we have these people who can be counted on an annual report. And again, we don't want to get into the game of judging salvation, but you fast forward a day, a month, a year, 2 years, and there's no fruit of a repentant life. There's no evidence of a process of sanctification going on. The only evidence that we have is that they raised their hand when they were instructed to do so, when they were whipped up into some sort of a emotional frenzy. And again, God gets to judge salvation. Yeah. God gets to kind of sort all that out. But at the same time, there is a value to a real, true movement of God in someone's life. And it's not always going to be dramatic like the one that you had. But there are times when God is talking to you saying, today's the day. Man. And it doesn't have to happen at the altar of your local Baptist church.
For sure.
It can happen right there in your car. Listen to this right now. Guys in the gym working out right now, listening to this. It could happen right now. You take your faith from you and you transfer it to Christ. Mm-hmm. It's pishtuo. That's faith, not faith that, but it's faith in, right? When you sat down in that chair, you had evidence to suggest that was a chair, and if you transferred your weight into it, that it would hold you up. But it wasn't until you actually made the act of transferring your faith into that chair that it became real to you, because you have transferred your faith for getting you and keeping you off the ground from yourself to that chair.
I'm familiar with that model of evangelism, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that transfer of faith, because the chair is there, and you see the chair, you know it's a chair.
Right.
But how can you trust the chair until you sit in it?
Right.
Facts, yeah.
And so the life you're living right now, not only for yourself, for your wife and for your daughter, and for all those kids that you're having these micro influences on throughout the year, is just tremendous. And then the people that knew the old Jeff, right? You would be one of the guys that would be like, Jesus can't get that guy. He's way too high. He's way too ate up with this or that or the other thing. He's way too far out. And you're evidence that you're not. You never are.
Yeah, praise God, man. Jesus, not done with us, man. And there's something to talk to the listener or the viewer. There's something for you to be doing. And you really don't know how much life is worth living until you know that you're doing what God created you to do. I'm able to step into a math classroom and instruct the lesson of the day, no matter what it is. And I feel like Michael Jordan stepping onto a basketball court. You know what I mean? I feel like Dion on a football field.
Do you know what that is? Yeah. The way I describe it to people, Jeff, is over the X. So there was a few years ago where a guy that I really respect he basically offered me an incredible opportunity to join something that just a few years prior to, I would have jumped at it. No matter what I was doing from a vocational point of view, I would have jumped into what this group was doing. But I just said, dude, I'm over the X. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I was put on this planet to equip men to push back darkness. That's why Undaunted.Life is here. That's why the podcast is here. It's expanded out to my Dominion program. It's expanded out to the Daily Blade. And who knows where it's going to be a year, 10 years from now. But I'm over the X. So the same thing, when I get behind a microphone to interview somebody or to do a solo episode or get on stage with a mic attached to my face, there's nerves, there's jitters, there's whatever. But you know what I do right before I walk out on stage to go speak to a group? Hey, you were built to do this. Mm-hmm. And guess what? When you're preaching in front of a group of guys, when you're preaching in a prison to different guys, are my eloquently constructed sentences and dialogue going to be what saves somebody? Are my Christian apologetics arguments that I regurgitate because I learned from a book or a podcast earlier and I regurgitated onto somebody, is that what saves them?
Yeah.
No. God saves people, right? God gives them, it's a gift of salvation and a gift of faith that he gives to them. My job is to be the messenger. Mm-hmm. Open up your face when you're supposed to, close it when you're done, and then move on. And that's the whole idea, is getting to the place where you're over the X. And not everyone's going to have a sexy job with a sexy title that has a super unique thing, that's got a public profile or any of those types of things. But wherever you are, you got to be over the X. I mean, that's where, if you're dropping payload, you're exactly where you need to be. Because if you're off the X, it's not going to go well if you try to deliver. You know what I mean?
That's good. And I totally agree and see the fruit of your own spirit, bro. I know I can tell you were built to do this too. And I can tell because you've been pretty consistent. I would say a better part of a decade, especially with the Undaunted and the just the ministry for men and challenging people in addiction and what's going on with them. And I remember seeing videos of you doing your MMA, just rolling around, your BJJ stuff, outside in the grass. Like, I remember those videos.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I mean, you I've never heard it put that way before, but I would say you're more than standing on the X or over the X, bro. I think you're doing exactly what God called you to do. And then to be able to have a platform to invite other guys in to join your ranks, so to speak, to say, hey, having a purpose is really what living is all about, obviously Jesus come home soon or come take me home soon. I wouldn't stray away from the option to go with Jesus, right? I'm not saying I want to live forever on earth, but being here right now, doing what God has us doing, it definitely makes life so much better when you're doing what you built to do, man. Even if it's sitting at a table at a microphone or in a pulpit or showing kids how to use a Sony camera or teaching that single leg sweep, man. For the non-wrestlers, go look it up, man.
That's right. It's good. Everyone should know how to do that. You never know when you're going to need it. But man, I'm just thrilled that you were able to take the time to come up and be in the studio today. But that's all for me. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
Hey, I will say this. I do have a memory of Kyle Thompson.
Oh, we can just cut this off now. We want to cut it right now?
I was thinking about...
You're not going to embarrass me.
No. It actually speaks to...
Because you remember Fat Kyle. Because Kyle was a fat, pudgy little kid with a bad haircut.
Actually, I don't remember him.
Okay, thank God.
I don't remember him whatsoever. Okay. I remember Kyle on the wrestling team. And I thought about this on the way up here today, that God has really had this same calling about holding men accountable since we were in high school. And you may not ever remember this, but I never forgot this. In fact, when I think Kyle Thompson, this is the first thing I think about.
I have no idea what you're even about to say. I'm still nervous.
So here we go. Don't be nervous. It's good. It speaks to your integrity.
Okay, let's go.
Coach Styron used to make us run a square mile.
Right.
And for those not familiar with Lawton, around Eisenhower High School sits on the corner of Gore Boulevard and 53rd. One of those, 52nd or 53rd, one of those. And it's a mile from 53rd to 67th. It's then another mile when you turn left on 67th to go north on 67th from Gore to Lee Boulevard.
Yep.
It's then another mile to go left again from down Lee Boulevard all the way back to 53rd. So if you can picture it, you just got this big square. Literally, Lawton is set up like a grid, like a coordinate plane.
Yep.
And you could start at Ike or Eisenhower High School, and you could run west, then run north, then run east, then run south, and you've just done 4 miles of a run.
Yep.
And in preseason, especially September timeframe, because wrestling starts officially in October, he would have the team come together if you weren't playing football, and you would run this square mile. You remember running that square mile?
Of course, yep.
I remember
chasing Chad Carden, never being able to catch him, but go ahead.
I remember one time, and I was always at the front, right? I would always take off. Well, I can't remember what grade we were in, but I remember running, and I remember being so far in front of everybody and looking behind me and thinking, I'll just walk. And so I stopped on Lee about halfway and walked. And I remember people were passing me, and I let them pass me because I knew I was going to catch up to them.
Right.
And at some point, Kyle Thompson jogs past. And Kyle Thompson goes, "Come on, Jeff." You're supposed to be a leader of the team, right? But you're walking. And Kyle kept running. And I just remember thinking, well, screw him, man. I'm about to finish before him anyway. And sure enough, I kind of let you get all the way to 53rd Street at that light by that gas station. It used to be called Pappy's Corner right there. Now it's an Easy Go or a Casey's. And I not only caught up to you, but I passed you and everybody else and got there. And I just remember thinking to myself, that shows him. You know what I mean? But I remember you didn't say another word to me that day, but when you came in, you just kind of looked at me and you kind of just shook your head. And I remember thinking in my mind then at 16 years old or whatever we were, he's right. Like, I'm supposed to be a leader. I'm a captain of this team. I've been on varsity the whole time. I'm pretty good. I'm not a state champion or anything like that, but I'm decent enough. I'm one of the better ones on this team. How dare he talk to me like that, But he's not wrong. And I've never forgot that about. I don't know if you remember that at all.
I don't.
But it happened, and it just makes sense that now you're still kind of calling people out to say what's right and what's wrong. So I think that's dope.
So I don't remember that, but I don't doubt that for 1 second that I did that. And part of it, there's a few reasons. It's not easy to be my friend. I will tell you that much. Because I lean on my friends. And I don't mean like lean on me when I'm not strong, I'll be your friend, I'll help you carry on. I mean like I'm leaning on you a little bit. Hey, can you hold this weight? Hey, can you handle that comment? Hey, I'm calling you up. You were going to do 1, we're actually going to do 3.
Well, there's been times where I've posted something on the internet and you've called me and you've said, hey, bro, look, I know what you're trying to say, but this could be interpreted wrong, or let's talk about what you mean by this, and we'll have a good conversation to the point where I'm like, you know what? Kyle is absolutely right. Let me delete this comment or this post because he's not wrong.
Well, and that's the thing is because I don't want to find out on the day when the bullets start flying, right? Or the day whenever, the top blows off or whatever situation, that you don't have it, that you don't have it in you, that you don't have grit, that you don't have resilience. I want to find out now, right? Because I have a love for a lot of different kinds of people, but I do not trust all kinds of people. I have different categories of person, okay? You're a dude. You're a dude in the community that I can say howdy to. You are somebody that I can rely on if I need advice on a spreadsheet. And then there are people that it's 3 o'clock in the morning, my life's falling apart. They get the phone call. That's what I went viral for, was talking about the 3 a.m. friend. And they're just down. They don't know what the question is, but they know the answer is yes. And now we're just going to work backwards. There's those types of guys in your life. And so I lean on dudes. And also because when I was in high school, I was pegged out at 5'10", about 170 pounds. Not a whole lot of guys go to the major leagues that have that body style. And so I didn't have the natural skill that a lot of people had, some of the best athletes that we trained with. But I was going to outwork everybody. So it was my work ethic, my grit, my resilience that got me playing time. It wasn't my dad sponsoring the team. It wasn't, my superior athletic ability. It was just doggone it. I'm going to do this and I'm going to drag you. Y'all drag your dead corpse across the finish line if I have to. That kind of an idea. And how that's extrapolated out to today is when I'm training people and their minds get weak and they think it's their body, I just don't let them.
Yeah.
It's because everyone finds a reason to lose. And I'm like, I just challenge you to find a reason to win, right? I get people doing wall sits, which are like, it's like torture. But you tell someone to go sit on a wall, they shaking, and then they hit the ground, and then it's like, it's miraculous. I don't know if you know this. I'm like Benny Hinn, right? I can just make people do things by just going, whoop, right? And I just come over to them and I go, stand up. And you know what they're able to do, Jeff?
They stand up.
They stand up. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's almost as if their brains got weak and told their bodies it's okay to quit. Mm-hmm. And I explain to people all the time.
We love wall sits at Lawton High Wrestling, by the way.
But I tell people this. I was like, your brain has seen you do that before. Whatever that is. So if you dogged it on that 4-mile run, you saw you do that. Mm-hmm. You saw you do that before. But your brain also sees when you could have dogged it, but you kept going. You've seen you do that before. Mm-hmm. And if you just build up a bank account of deposits of I could have quit and I didn't. I could have gone lighter, but I didn't. I could have not given full effort on that last sprint, but I did, right? One day, you're going to need to take a withdrawal from that resilience bank account. There's going to be something there because you've seen you do that before.
You built it up.
You did the hard thing. You took the more difficult route. You prepared yourself for the day of battle. And as a Christian, we live in America where if you post a scripture on your Facebook, you might get a sarcastic comment. And you're like, I'm being persecuted. You know what? But we don't live in a village where Fulani Muslim terrorists are coming into the village with AK-47s on the back of dirt bikes and shooting people, and to the people that don't make it away from the bullets, they chop their heads off. We're not dealing with that level of persecution.
Absolutely
not.
But
that doesn't mean that we're never going to, because there may be a time and place.
And what happens if that happens to you?
Right. Are you ready for the day of battle? Right?
Yep.
Have you built up a tremendous amount of deposits in a bank account that now you need to take withdrawals from? Right? So the underground church in the Middle East and Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, to the Christians in Ukraine, to all these people, all these places, hopefully they were making a lot of deposits, because the amount of withdrawals they're needing to take right now is substantial.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to start getting ready on the day when the battle has begun.
That's good.
I want all the preparation to have taken place beforehand. Same thing with you in basic training. Why was basic training easy? Because you tortured yourself at wrestling practice, right? It made the hard thing easy.
Yeah,
but the hard thing doesn't just become easy because you want it to be. It only becomes easy if you prepare for it.
Make those deposits. That's good. I'm stealing that.
You should. Don't give me any credit either. That's the whole thing. But Jeff, man, we got to get you back home at some point.
Appreciate you, man. Let me come on here and rant and rave a little bit, man. This is a dope setup, man. I'm proud of you, man. I love you, man. You're doing a good job.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.